Early autumn brought with it a storm like few others. Rain came down in sheets, heavy and relentless, drumming on rooftops like 1,000 urgent knocks. The sky hung low and leaden, painted in shades of slate and bruised indigo, as if threatening to collapse entirely. It wasn't even 6 in the evening, yet Cravel was cloaked in a dim twilight. Xu Qing dashed through the flooded streets, pant legs hiked up to his knees. Water splashed with every pounding step, flying several meters as he weaved around puddles and debris like a man being chased by fate. "Hey, Sue, no umbrella again?" an old voice called out. The security guard at the entrance booth leaned out, brandishing an umbrella he'd pulled from under the desk. "Snapped in half," Xu Qing shouted back, waving dismissively as he reached the booth. Rain streamed down his face and dripped from his soaked collar. Already soaked, through anyway. No point now. He offered a half grin, adjusted his clinging pant legs, and splashed onward into the gloom. The residential complex was quiet, the kind of ghostly quiet that only arrived with bad weather. Most residents had already hunkered down, and in the storm, the place felt like a hollowed-out memory of itself. Reaching his building, Xu Qing stomped the water off his shoes, wrung out the hem of his shirt, and rummaged for his keys. The stairwell light blinked on with a click, activated by the motion. He froze. A figure stood by his door. A girl, young, pale, and soaking wet. Her dark hair clung to her cheeks, water dripping in slow rivulets from the ends. Her posture was rigid, expression wary as the sudden light hit her. She turned her head toward him, eyes cold and guarded. That wasn't what startled him. It was her clothes. A plain, old-fashioned hemp robe, cinched at the waist with fraying rope. Straw sandals that had clearly traveled too far. Her toes poked out from the worn soles. And the sword, she held it vertically, both hands gripping it tightly as if afraid the air itself might attack. Xu Qing blinked. Cosplayer? No, dedicated cosplayer. The sandals nearly made him chuckle. He tore his gaze away, returned to fishing out his keys, and prepared to open the door. "Stop!" the girl ordered sharply, her accent odd, voice taut. Xu Qing lifted both brows, then held up the keys and pointed at the door. "This is my apartment." He hesitated. Did he really look that threatening? The girl took a step back. A bit insulting, actually. Still, he unlocked the door and glanced back. She hadn't moved, just stared at him like a spooked cat backed into a corner. He shrugged and stepped inside. So clothes peeled off, tossed into the hamper. The hot shower that followed was worth every wet step he'd taken. Water ran over his skin, chasing away the chill, and when he emerged warm, dry, and in fresh pajamas, he felt reborn. "Wintermelon, come here," he called, plucking a soda from the fridge and slumping into the couch. His cat waddled into view, a fluff ball of fur and entitlement. 2 years ago, she'd been a bony stray perched on the community wall. He'd coaxed her down with a sausage and never looked back. Now she was fat, spoiled, and still as sassy as ever. He poured her food, cracked open his soda, and opened his delivery app. Burger, chicken wrap, cola. Done. The wind howled outside. Thunder rumbled in the distance, lightning streaking across the sky like an angry god scribbling across the clouds. Xu Qing stretched, glanced at the door, and debated. Still there? He grabbed an umbrella and peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Cautiously, he opened the door a crack. She was still there, standing a few steps away, rain-soaked, sword in hand, and staring at him like he might lunge at her. Xu Qing offered the umbrella. It's getting dark. The rain's not letting up. If your home's nearby." No response. "If it's far, maybe call someone? I can check with the security guard." He tried to keep his tone friendly. "You're drenched. You should get somewhere warm." The girl didn't answer. Her expression didn't change, but her hand on the sword remained firm. Her eyes flicked to the umbrella. Then, finally she spoke. "Where is this?" Strange accent. Clear confusion. Xu Qing tilted his head. "Jia Residential Complex. Beiwang Road." She frowned, clearly processing the information. Then, "Who are you?" Xu Qing blinked. "Neighbor? Stranger? Unlucky protagonist in someone else's hallucination?" He gave up. "Call me handsome." She didn't laugh. He sighed. Look, do you want the umbrella or not? I was just trying to be nice. Her gaze softened, barely. Then, releasing the hilt slightly, she cupped her hand in a strange martial gesture. I'm a disciple of the Yin Gang. I don't know how I arrived here. Xu Qing stared. Right? Not cosplay. Not normal. Definitely unhinged. Okay then. I'll get the security guard. Maybe we can sort this out. He retreated, leaving the door slightly ajar, and grabbed his phone from the couch. As he dialed, he waved for her to come inside. Hello, Uncle Zhao, you there? The girl remained outside, eyeing him with suspicion. Sue? Yeah, I hear you. What's going on? Before he could reply, the TV behind him blared a commercial at full volume. Bang! Something struck the TV dead center. Sizzle. Pop crackle. Smoke curled from the screen. A dagger, her dagger, had lodged itself into the glass. Sue, what was that? Clang. Her sword was drawn, gleaming in the flickering light. She took a step back, ready to fight. Xu Qing slowly lowered the phone. He looked at the TV, at the dagger, at the girl who now stood braced for war in his apartment doorway. Nothing, he said into the phone. Carry on. Xu Qing put his phone down, a chill creeping across his spine. Blood within 5 steps. That wasn't metaphor. It was a warning. A very sharp, very real warning. He glanced at the iron darts still embedded in the smoldering remains of his TV. Yeah, this wasn't cosplay. So, he coughed awkwardly, forcing calm into his voice. Where did you say you're from? His brain tried to rationalize. A traveling performer? A stunt woman from some martial arts troupe? No, not even wuqiao acrobats walked around barefoot in straw sandals and threw daggers like that. And definitely not with real swords. The girl outside his door shifted slightly, still soaked, still wary, the sword gripped tightly in one hand, its scabbard tucked in the other. Xu Qing swallowed. No way. Mind putting the sword away? I'm a good guy, remember? He nudged the umbrella on the floor with his toe. Brought you this earlier. Full gentleman points. She looked at the umbrella, then at him, then at the ruined TV. After a long pause, she finally slid her sword back into the scabbard. The metallic SHHK made Xu Qing wince. That wasn't decorative steel. That was a real sword. What's your name? Where are you from? The girl stood straight and answered firmly. Jianghe, disciple of the Yin Gang. Rivers, huh? Xu Qing offered a dry smile. Powerful name, and completely unhelpful. This Yin Gang, where was it even based? It's big, I guess. He tried, fishing for more. Where's it located? She frowned. The Gusu Yin Gang. You not heard of it? Gusu? That ancient name again. It wasn't used anymore. Not in this era. Xu Qing exhaled slowly. Right? This is bad. Really bad. She looked around his apartment with confusion and tension, her eyes pausing at every unfamiliar object, her lips pressed into a thin line. Do you need help? He offered hesitantly. Should he call the police? The hospital? Lock the door and pretend this never happened? He stared at the strange girl standing in his doorway. The ruined TV, the lingering scent of ozone and fried circuits, the soft padding of Wintermelon snoring on the couch like nothing had happened, and sighed. It's hard being a decent human these days. Come in, he muttered, stepping aside. If anyone sees you standing there with a sword, the cops will show up in 3 minutes. The station's right across the street. She hesitated. Her eyes searched his face for a trap. Eventually, she stepped inside, but just a little. I'm a good person, Xu Qing added, palms up like a peace offering. If you have questions, just ask. Jiang, he didn't waste time. I want to go home. Okay. Where's home? The Yin Gang. Xu Qing rubbed his temples. This is Jiahe Residential Complex, Beiwang Road, Yongkang New District, City of Jiang. She blinked. Blank. You don't know Jiang City? He asked. She shook her head. Please don't tell me you're from ancient times. Don't mess with me. Who's the emperor? The emperor? Xu Qing paused. Wait. She didn't say which one. Just the emperor. Right. But which emperor? The emperor is the emperor, she said, as if the question made no sense. Oh no. What year is it for you? He asked carefully. Jiang, he tilted her head, considering. Then, in that unfamiliar accent, she replied. The 16th year of the Kaiyuan era. Goosebumps flared up his arms. Xu Qing turned, grabbed his phone, and rapidly typed. Kaiyuan era, year 16. Emperor Xuanzong. Tang Dynasty. Li Longji, he asked tentatively. She startled, eyes widening. You know the emperor's name? Xu Qing stared at her. She wasn't lying. She wasn't playing a part. This was real. Somehow impossibly real. Oh gods, he muttered. This is like something out of a drama. A conversation across 1,200 years. Do you know Li Bai? Jiang, he asked suddenly. Li Tai Bai, the recluse of Green Lotus? Xu Qing blinked. I mean, yeah, kind of famous. These days, he's probably jungling in the canyon. She lit up. You know him? Where is he? Forget I said that. Knock, knock, knock. Delivery. Jiang, he spun toward the sound, her hand flying to her sword. Xu Qing nearly choked. Whoa, wait, just food. He stepped forward quickly, hands up like a hostage negotiator. Not a threat, just takeout. Put the sword away. Please. Jiang, he looked skeptical. A servant? No, just a guy bringing food. Slowly, cautiously, she stepped behind the door, hidden from view but still watching. Xu Qing opened the door just wide enough to grab the bag and shut it again in one smooth motion. See? Food. He held up the bag like a peace offering. Are you hungry? Jiang's eyes flicked to the meal, then to him. She said nothing. I'm going to eat. You're welcome to join. She didn't move. Xu Qing took a bite of his burger, flopped onto the couch, and waved the second wrap. Try this. You've definitely never had one before. She shook her head, but stared a bit too long. Drink. He slid the cola across the table toward her. Sweet. You might like it. Jiang, he eyed the drink warily. Is this poison? What? No. Just sugar and bubbles. Are you mocking me? What? No. Xu Qing groaned. Everything here is just weird, okay? Food, clothes, buildings, tea. She frowned. Is this a meal? Sure is. Modern fast food. Burger, wrap, drink, you're good. She nodded solemnly. Strange customs. I could say the same. Xu Qing muttered, lifting his burger again. Thud. He bumped the drink with his elbow. The cup tipped, cola sloshing over the edge, fizzing onto the floor. They both stared at it. Don't, Xu Qing warned. Clang. Damn it. It was an accident. Jiang, he had drawn her sword again.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
In a civilized society, it shouldn't always be about drawing swords and fighting. It's just not right. Xu Qing had finally explained that it wasn't poison, and a bead of sweat rolled down his forehead. The cola, knocked over impulsively, nearly sparked a bloody incident. Judging by her reaction, she wasn't kidding. What was half believed before was now 70% true. Can you stop pulling out your sword at every turn? Xu Qing stared at Jiang He's sword and said, I'm a decent guy. Otherwise, would I care if you were left outside to die? Right? You've scared Wintermelon. The fat cat shrank into a corner, licking its fur while casting sidelong glances at the two foolish humans. You're a good person? I'm a good person. Seeing Jiang He's silence, Xu Qing felt a headache coming on, unsure what to do. He still felt a bit dizzy. Cosplaying was one thing, but why did it have to turn into this becoming real? My mind a mess. Let me sort things out. Leaning back against the sofa, Xu Qing rubbed his temples, thinking about what to do next and how to handle it. Facing this fierce girl, there were only 3 options. First, trick her out the door and lock it. Whether she starved, froze, or caused chaos outside wouldn't be his problem. Within 3 days, there would likely be news of her arrest or being shot down after brandishing a weapon. Second, call the police and let them handle it. A girl who might be a subject of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang inexplicably appearing in the modern era, over 1,200 years later, would certainly be of interest for study. But the police would probably definitely think it was a joke, and if something went wrong when they arrived, it could end with bloodshed. Third, let her stay for now. Xu Qing glanced at her, thoughts racing. Could he let this ancient heroine, sword in hand, stay under his roof? Despite her impulsiveness, she might know martial arts, or even possess skills like Lightfoot. Releasing her to roam freely in this society could mean regret later, regardless of whether she got caught, became homeless, or miraculously survived. A scene from a sci-fi novel unfolding before him. How could he just let it slip away? In just a moment, Xu Qing's mind had already analyzed everything clearly. Gurgle. Xu Qing turned his head. The sound came from the girl's stomach. Eat something. He picked up the untouched chicken wrap and offered it to her. If he was going to let her stay, he needed to calm her down. No more sudden sword drawing. It was too nerve-wracking. What is this? Jiang he hesitated, glancing at the black umbrella by the sofa, beginning to believe that he might be trustworthy. Food. Xu Qing unwrapped a corner of the chicken wrap. Should I take a bite first to prove it's not poisoned? Go ahead. Forget it. You probably wouldn't like it anyway. I'll order a rice bowl for you in a bit. Xu Qing bit into the chicken wrap, chewing thoughtfully as he planned his next steps. If she was staying, he needed to conceal her identity. Do you know where this is? He asked, patting the sofa and making room for her. Sit. Let's talk while seated. You standing there with a sword makes me nervous. Jiang he came over, pressing her hand on the sofa twice before slowly sitting down. Her gaze remained wary, though she seemed more relaxed than before. She hadn't been idle either, analyzing her situation from the start. Despite her unfamiliarity with everything, she recognized the umbrella. This man initially offered her shelter. It was just that the room felt strange, and his food habits were peculiar. She assumed he might have some quirks, but caution was still needed. Where is this? Jiang City. Xu Qing rubbed his nose, thought for a moment, and said, I don't know how to explain. Do you know Li Bai? Do you know where he is? What I'm about to say might scare you. Jiang he looked at him without blinking. Go ahead. Put the sword aside first. I'm afraid you'll react impulsively. All right. She glanced around, set the sword on the table, and released it. In a strange accent, she said, It doesn't matter where this is. I want to go home. You might not be able to go back. Why not? Because it's very far from your home. Hearing this, Jiang He's eyelids twitched as she looked up at Xu Qing. How far? About 1,200 years away. Jiang He frowned, puzzled. What do you mean? She couldn't grasp the concept of years and distance being related. Did returning home mean walking for 1,000 years? Here. Xu Qing pointed at the ground and observed her expression as he spoke slowly. This is 1,200 years after your time. Li Longji, Li Bai, Yang Yuhuan, and Lu Shan, whether you know them or not, your emperor, your friends, everyone you know, they all lived more than 1,000 years ago. They have all been dead for over a millennium. Nonsense. Jiang He sprang to her feet, looking around in disbelief. Whether it's nonsense, you can verify it gradually. For now, you see that nothing here is familiar to you. Seeing that she didn't pick up her sword again, Xu Qing sighed in relief. As long as they could communicate. The worst scenario would be one where she acted like those characters on TV who never listened, believed everyone was an enemy, and went on a killing spree. Crazy. For now, think of this as a new world. In the Jade Capital in the sky, the 12 towers and 5 cities. You know Li Bai's poem, right? Treat this place as the Jade Capital. He didn't write that poem. Xu Qing blinked. A slip-up. Maybe he hadn't written it when you knew him. He should have been in his 20s. Seeing Jiang He's uncertain expression, he added, This world is both dangerous and safe, with its own laws. You can verify everything about Li Bai later, but for now, put it aside. To be safe, you need to first understand this world. Do you understand? You're lying to me. Jiang He frowned at him. You're smart. I think you can judge for yourself. Xu Qing pointed to his head, then outside. You saw the outside world, right? It's nothing like what you're used to. Those people you knew, they've all become history. Looking at her expression, Xu Qing suddenly felt a shared sense of sorrow. If he were thrown 1,000 years into the future, he probably wouldn't handle it any better. Rubbish. Jiang He gritted her teeth, grabbing the sword from the table. I don't believe it. She turned to leave. Wait. Clang. Her sword slid out halfway, aimed at Xu Qing. I already said this world has its own rules. You need to understand them to stay safe. Xu Qing stood still, watching her draw the sword for the third time, without any anger or impatience. He had seen through the essence of this fiery girl. She was just scared. Anyone tossed into a foreign land would be disoriented at first, let alone someone thrown 1,000 years into the future, seeing nothing familiar. For example, carrying a weapon openly is dangerous here. Why are you helping me? When Wintermelon was outside, I took him in too. Wintermelon? Over there, that fat cat. Jiang He followed his gaze. The fat cat lay lazily on the cabinet, yawning. Are you mocking me? No. Jiang He stood by the door, drenched, hair messily stuck to the side of her face, holding a sword in her left hand and pressing her right against the door, staring silently at Xu Qing. She wasn't foolish, just lacking awareness. Although she wasn't sure if Xu Qing was telling the truth, or if there was a mix of lies, from the first glance, she could tell he harbored no malice. He had just been returning home, and, seeing her there and noticing the approaching nightfall, offered an umbrella so she could leave. Why help me? She asked for the second time. Xu Qing scratched his head. This female warrior was hard to fool. To be honest, I was curious. This kind of thing is so unusual. And Xu Qing gestured with his hands. You understand, right? Imagine if I went back to your era and met you. Wouldn't you think it was amazing if you saw a man from over 1,000 years in the future, and then a stranger showing up out of nowhere would only get killed by our leader? An awkward silence hung in the air. Times are different. Here, you can't just kill people. Everyone values peace. Xu Qing felt a chill down his back as he debated whether to let her stay. Keeping her was risky, but letting her go felt like a missed opportunity. This was a living person from ancient times. The silence stretched out. I don't know how you got here. If we find out, maybe you can go back. But until then, you need to learn to live in this world. The first rule is that you can't hurt people without reason. Xu Qing glanced at the broken TV on the wall and added, and don't break things either. He paused, gesturing toward the door. If you can follow these rules, I'll help you. Or you can leave now. But don't hurt anyone outside either. There are officers everywhere, and they're formidable. The sky outside had darkened, and the rain had eased to a light drizzle, the sound of raindrops tapping softly against the window. Jiang He looked up at the light bulb on the ceiling, conflicted. She knew nothing about this place, and her attire was unlike anyone else's. She might not even make it out of the city. If she left, she truly wouldn't know where to go. Gurgle. Her stomach rumbled twice more. Xu Qing observed her briefly before grabbing his phone from the sofa. If you agree, put down the sword. I'll order some food. It'll be delivered. To be honest, taking you in is risky for me. It's a double-edged sword. Not only do I need to prevent others from finding out, but I also need to worry about misunderstandings where you might cut me down. So, do you understand? Ingobe. Jiang He pondered for a moment, nodding slowly. She glanced at the sword in her hand, hesitated, and then tossed it aside. Clang! The real iron sword hit the ground with a solid sound. Xu Qing's lips curved slightly as he looked back at his phone. What do you usually eat? You might not like the food here. Let me see if there's anything you recognize. Flatbread. He thought for a moment and shook his head. Never mind. I'll order porridge and some buns. You're all soaked. You should take a bath first. The food will be ready when you come out. Hey, can you use internal energy to dry your clothes? Jiang He looked at him in confusion, not understanding his question about internal energy. Where do I bathe? This way. Xu Qing dropped the topic of martial skills. There would be time for that later. He led her to the bathroom and turned on the light. There are a lot of strange things in this world. Don't be too surprised. Just trust that I won't hurt you. Watch this. He turned the shower knob, and water sprayed out from the shower head. Jiang He froze momentarily, watching him operate it. Left for hot water, right for cold, push down to stop, and up for water. Now try it. Xu Qing taught her the basics, and thankfully, this ancient person wasn't clueless. After one demonstration, she understood, curiosity brimming on her face. This is for washing your hair. Press here, and it comes out. Spread it on your hair, and bubbles will form. Just rinse the bubbles out. And this is for washing your body. Just apply it, Xu Qing guided his newfound ancient friend through the bathroom, even explaining how to use the toilet. When she nodded, he left, scratching his head and sitting on the sofa. He glanced back at the bathroom, where the light was on, but there was no sound of water. He fetched clothes from the bedroom closet and brought them over. Jiang, he was still standing there, fully dressed, eyeing Xu Qing warily as he re-entered. There are no women's clothes here, so you'll have to make do. I'll buy you some tomorrow. Xu Qing's heart skipped a beat. He'd forgotten she wouldn't know how to lock the door. He casually placed the clothes down and said, "Come here. I'll show you how to lock the door." Thankfully, she hadn't started changing yet, or there'd have been blood on the spot. After teaching her how to lock the bathroom door, Xu Qing left with a sense of relief, sitting quietly on the sofa until he heard the shower running, finally at ease. Finding an ancient person and a female warrior at that. Am I dreaming? Xu Qing pinched his leg hard, shaking his head and tiptoeing over to pick up the sword, slowly unsheathing it. The blade glinted coldly, with dried dark stains in the blood groove, emitting a faint metallic scent. A real weapon. He'd have to get the old man to appraise it someday, to see if it was an antique. Jiang, he came out to find Xu Qing bent over the table, writing. She glanced over. Her sword was still there, and the TV had been taken down. The iron dart embedded in the screen was also removed, lying on the corner of the table. What are you writing? Huh. Xu Qing turned around to see Jiang, he wearing his oversized shirt and jeans, her damp hair dripping water, making her look somewhat modern. Just a list of the current issues that need solving. He waved the paper in his hand. Can you read? Jiang, he squinted. The script is strange and hard to recognize. Oh, I'll read it out when I'm done. These clothes are odd too. She tugged uncomfortably at the collar. They look good on you. Ahem. It's customary here to compliment someone. It's not considered flirtatious or improper, right? Better not say frivolous things. Understood. Xu Qing respected her traditional mindset. Change wouldn't come overnight. There are slippers there. You can throw away these these straw sandals. I'll get you a new pair tomorrow. Jiang, he glanced where he pointed, wiggled her toes in the straw sandals, then silently walked over and put on the slippers. Knock, knock. The door sounded, and before Xu Qing could react, she darted behind the door. It's just the food delivery. Don't worry. He reassured her as he got up, feeling an inexplicable wave of emotion. This girl's cautious and guarded demeanor wasn't unlike that of a stray kitten. He took the delivery through the crack in the door and laid everything out on the table, motioning to Jiang He. Eat up. Porridge, buns, and a small plate of pickles. Jiang He stood in front of the table, not immediately reaching for the food. After a brief silence, she said, I remember something the second-in-command often said. What's that? Xu Qing asked, curious. No one shows goodwill without reason. If they do, they're either scheming or thieving. They stared at each other for a moment before Jiang He smiled. But you're a good person. Of course. Xu Qing returned the smile. Luckily, you didn't draw your sword again. What if I had? I don't know. He knew he wouldn't win in a fight, but if things had gone differently, he couldn't keep her here without clear communication. A biting stray cat deserves its fate of wandering alone. Xu Qing was a methodical person. Once he made a choice between can and cannot, he no longer dwelled on it and naturally moved on to the next step. By the time Jiang He finished the simple meal of congee and side dishes, it was already close to 8 p.m. Xu Qing paused the pen in his hand, helped clear the food containers and wrappers, setting them aside, and then picked up the dart, weighing it in his hand. Right now, you are 1,200 years in the future. Whether you accept this or not, our conversation will proceed on this basis. Do you understand? The saying goes, take someone's things and soften your stance. Eat someone's food and watch your words. Jiang He touched her stomach. Although still skeptical of Xu Qing's words, she said nothing more, suppressing her thoughts and nodding, ready to listen. Xu Qing noted her attitude, but paid it no mind. He fiddled with the iron dart in his hand, mulling over his words. First, this place is completely safe. At least in this room, you are safe. Even if you were to cut me down, as long as my body doesn't rot, you could hide here for about a week, 7 days or so, without any incident. He looked at Jiang He, who showed no reaction and just listened quietly, and continued, "So, stop worrying about your sword. Everything here is unfamiliar to you like that." Xu Qing tapped the broken television with the dart. "It's just a device that makes sound, used for, well, for entertainment. It's harmless. There are many things like it, including this." He took out his phone and opened a music app, playing a random song. A melodious tune came from the speaker, making Jiang He's arm twitch slightly as she stared at the phone in silence. "I'm telling you this to reassure you. Any strange things I do or actions I take are just that, normal. Don't misunderstand. I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm just explaining." Xu Qing gestured to the TV on the table and then turned off the music, leaning back on the sofa with a long exhale and looking at Jiang He. Got it. He wanted to avoid any misunderstandings that could arise from Jiang He's lack of understanding, as his own safety was at stake. Jiang He was silent for a moment, then nodded under his gaze. "Now, about the outside world. This is more complicated. It's a peaceful world now, where everyone lives in peace, and outside is generally safe. Safe for me. That is, for you, it's full of danger. Why? Because you suddenly appeared and might be seen as a threat to others." Xu Qing spoke slowly, thinking as he explained, "It's like the palace. If you walked in with a sword, you'd definitely be pursued. It's like that. You're obviously an outsider." As he spoke, he stood up from the sofa, walked to the bedroom, took out his wallet, and placed his ID card in front of the curious Jiang He. "This is an ID card. Everyone here has one, with a number assigned at birth. If someone commits a crime or does something wrong, they can be tracked through this for an arrest warrant. So, there are officers on the streets who periodically check IDs to see if there are any fugitives around. If you don't have one and get checked, you'll be taken away for investigation. At that point, everything about you will be exposed, and who knows what will happen? It probably won't be good." He paused and added, "The laws here are strict, and the officers are formidable. If you injure someone, you will be caught, and resistance is a death sentence. Even carrying a weapon on the street like you do is against the law and would draw attention instantly." Xu Qing summarized these points and explained to Jiang He what to watch out for and what absolutely could not be done. For an ancient person who appeared out of nowhere, the most important thing now was to stay hidden before addressing any other matters. If she drew attention and her identity was exposed, it would create a sensation. A with diary Sisen, an ancient martial artist come to life. Jiang He quickly grasped the situation and nodded. "I understand. You mean I'm a refugee?" You could say that, but the consequences are severe." Xu Qing frowned, thought for a moment, and decided against mentioning scientific experiments, instead saying, "It's more like being an unregistered slave. If you're caught, it's very serious." Seeing her expression change, he added, "Just an analogy, it's as serious as that." The rain outside began to taper off. It was only a little past 8, and occasionally the sound of chairs moving could be heard from upstairs, while faint car horns echoed from the distant street. After a brief silence, Xu Qing stood from a sofa and walked to the window. Through it, he could see the dim glow of the streetlights, with neon signs of hotels flashing in the distance, glowing yellow and red. He lived on the first floor and could only see the immediate surroundings. Beyond that lay the bustling city, where even a modern person without an ID would struggle to survive, let alone a girl unfamiliar with everything. Leaving this room would be a death sentence. Being taken for research would be just as good as dead. After all that, the main point is simple. Xu Qing turned back, looking at Jiang He, and said, "You are in a very dangerous situation in this world. Meeting someone from over 1,200 years ago is fascinating. So I'm willing to help you, to do everything I can to help you adapt, hide, and gradually blend in. How can I trust you?" Jiang He lowered her head. Unlike Xu Qing, she lacked the ability to quickly adapt to this situation and still couldn't believe she was now 1,000 years in the future. Yet, the clothes she wore, the slippers on her feet, the lights overhead, the miraculous bathroom, and the enormous buildings outside, along with those strange moving metal boxes, Everything she saw was unfamiliar, things she had never even heard of. Loneliness and fear gripped her like a pair of large hands. She just wanted to go home, to take her sword and end this surreal dream. If you don't trust me, we can part ways here. Xu Qing walked back from the window, placing the iron dart on the table and pushing it towards her. Helping you isn't easy. In today's world, if you were to display your martial skills publicly, it would go viral online in an instant. There'd be no hiding it, so you need to cooperate. If you don't trust me, there's nothing I can do. Jiang He looked at Xu Qing, contemplating for a long time, as if weighing the truth and falsehood of his words. Chance encounters. You'll understand when you learn about this world. Xu Qing said casually. Out of 100 people who might come across her, fewer than 10 would consider turning her in to the authorities. Besides, if things worked out well, he might even get to learn her supreme sword technique of the 9 heavens and 8 desolations. So what should I do? Well, Xu Qing hesitated, scratching his head. The most important thing for now is to hide your identity. The rest we'll figure out as we go. I'll take that as a yes. Xu Qing waited for a moment. Seeing that she neither moved nor showed any signs of leaving, he directed his gaze to the sword lying on the floor nearby. In the future, don't draw your sword so casually. For people in this world, that's extremely frightening. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll help explain. Jiang He tilted her head slightly, thought carefully, and her lips moved a couple of times without making a sound. There were too many questions. She didn't even know where to start. She understood nothing about this place. She wanted to ask about everything, yet didn't know how to begin. Where's your wife? Xu Qing was dumbfounded. Is gossip just a natural trait of women? I'm here. Jiang He looked around, clenching and unclenching her fists. I'm a purebred single guy in my 20s. No wife yet. Not married yet. Although she didn't quite understand the word dog in this context, she did catch the part about him being unmarried. Yes. Xu Qing nodded. The room fell silent. Are you thinking that it's a bit improper for a man and woman to be alone together, or something? Look, in this world, that's normal. Besides, I'm not asking you to sleep in my bed. That storeroom over there, I'll clean it up, and you can make do with it for now. Unable to hold back, Xu Qing explained as he got up and gestured for her to follow him to the storeroom door. Inside was a spring bed that just needed a little tidying and some bedding to make it livable. Jiang He only came up to his shoulder. Standing by the door, she looked up at him with a somewhat odd expression. Getting a meal delivered just by saying hello, and a landowner at his age not being married yet. Is this a custom in this place? Xu Qing had no idea what was on her mind. He gathered up the clutter on the bed, wiped it down with a towel, then fetched a winter blanket from his room. He only had one set for summer and one for winter, so he'd have to make do. No Thailand body, yes. This is all clean, it's been washed. You can use it for now, and we'll figure things out tomorrow. Once he finished, Xu Qing stood at the door and demonstrated the lock for Jiang He again. Pausing, he added, get some rest early. I know your mind must be racing. Mine is too. Well, good night. I hope we both wake up to find this was just a dream. Oh, by the way, my name is Xu Qing. With that, Xu Qing gave her a small smile, turned off the living room light, and returned to his room. Jiang He stood quietly by the door, watching as he closed his room door. She looked around the living room, picked up her long sword, and clutched it tightly as she returned to her room, sitting on the bed with a pensive expression. Night deepened. The clouds gradually dispersed, and the moon peeked out, made brighter by the recent rain. The gentle moonlight streamed through the window, falling onto Xu Qing's face. Xu Qing couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the moon outside his window, feeling a faint sense of unreality. A regular, albeit unlucky, day spent interviewing and getting soaked on his way back home without an umbrella had ended up with him finding a sword-wielding girl who claimed to be from ancient times. In the distance, a few dogs barked. Xu Qing shifted, pulling his numb arm from under his head and listening for a moment. Hearing nothing further, he closed his eyes and forced himself to sleep. Whatever this mess is, we'll deal with it tomorrow. Without realizing it, dawn arrived. By the time Xu Qing woke up, it was already past 10 in the morning. Another day of slacking. Stretching lazily on his bed, he grabbed his phone and scrolled for a moment. Suddenly, he froze at the sound of a soft noise outside. The heroine? Xu Qing leapt from his bed and stealthily crept to the door, carefully opening it a crack to peek outside. Jiang, he was sitting on the couch, wearing the t-shirt he had given her yesterday, and holding a yellowed silk cloth as she wiped her sword. Xu Qing. Jiang, he had sensed movement by the door and looked over at him. So, it wasn't a dream, huh? Xu Qing's heart sped up slightly as he adjusted his clothes, walked over to the table, and poured himself a large glass of water, gulping it down in one go before exhaling deeply. For a brief moment, he doubted himself, wondering if she was playing a trick. But then, looking at the TV with a hole in it, he dismissed the thought. A real, ancient person from 1200 years ago was right here. So, you're up early. It's nearly noon. Jiang, he sheathed her sword, setting it aside as she looked at Xu Qing, her expression indecisive. Him waking up at nearly midday gave her an indescribable feeling, but strangely, it made her feel more at ease. Xu Qing scratched his head. Are you hungry? A little. Jiang, he patted herself down, realizing she was wearing the t-shirt and jeans Xu Qing had given her. She paused, got up, and took out 2 small silver pieces from her room, placing them on the table. Glancing at the still surprised Xu Qing, she hesitated, even though you don't seem to need it here. Got any gold? Xu Qing asked on impulse. Silver wasn't worth much, but gold had value anytime and anywhere. He still didn't know how he was going to manage getting her an ID card, and he couldn't afford to bribe anyone. Jiang, he paused, thinking, then went back to her room and brought out a crescent-shaped jade pendant. This should pawn for some silver, at least. Forget it. I was just joking. No need to pawn anything. I'm not so broke I can't feed you. Take the silver back. Xu Qing waved her off. Noticing her loose clothes, he thought for a moment and decided not to order food. Stay here while I go out to get some daily necessities and clothes for you. I'll bring lunch back, too. Remember, don't leave. It's dangerous outside. Though she looked better in his clothes than in that rough cloth and straw shoes, it was still an odd outfit for stepping out. Once she changed into some modern clothes and let her hair down, she could at least walk around the area without drawing too much attention. With that thought, he dressed and headed out, focusing entirely on how to conceal her identity. This was a matter he couldn't afford to be careless about. A real ancient warrior. Any mishap could lead to irreversible consequences. About this high, what's her size? In a women's clothing store, Xu Qing picked out a few simple and neat outfits in a youthful style, measuring against his shoulder as he consulted with the staff, then bought 3 sets. Before leaving, he thought it over and added a long skirt. Clothes, pants, shoes, socks, and seeing a lingerie store nearby, Xu Qing winced, hesitating for a moment before finally walking in. What size? When the clerk asked, Xu Qing cringed, gesturing vaguely with his hands, realizing he had no idea what to buy. Hi there. We're from the Bodhi translator team, and we're thrilled to share this new novel with you. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a 5-star rating on Novel Updates. We really appreciate your support. Thank you. 1 hour later, Xu Qing stood inside a fast food restaurant, picking up 2 orders of pork trotter rice, then paused to think if there was anything he'd forgotten to buy. Clothes, toothbrush, towel, even 2 packs of 7 Space. He wasn't sure what he was thinking, but there was a hint of caring for a disabled girl about it. Besides that, he also selected 2 books from a bookstore along the road. 5,000 Years of Chinese History and a practical guide to simplified and traditional characters. Doesn't matter if they're useful, just leave them at home for now. 2 orders of pork trotter rice ready. Thanks. Accepting the food, Xu Qing, his hands full of bags, started walking home. Beiwang Road wasn't bustling. It lay in a quieter corner of Jiang City, a bit secluded compared to the city center's noise and excitement. Still, it was a modern city, with all the nearby amenities one would expect. After yesterday's rainstorm, puddles of water remained in some of the low-lying areas along the road, gleaming under the sunlight. Uncle Zhao, the security guard, was relaxing in a chair under an umbrella after his lunch, smoking leisurely. Noticing Xu Qing approaching with all his bags, he casually called out, "Little Sue, doing some shopping?" "Yeah. Have you eaten yet?" "Just finished." "Oh, right, yesterday you called me." "It was a misdial. Nothing serious." Xu Qing smiled. Couldn't exactly tell him he picked up a person from ancient times. "Be careful. Keep your doors and windows locked. Aunt Liang mentioned there's been some petty theft going on lately. If you see anyone suspicious, make sure to watch out." Hearing Uncle Zhao's words, Xu Qing paused and nodded. "Got it. I'll keep that in mind." He made his way back to his apartment door, pulled out his keys, and opened it. The moment he looked up, he saw Jiang He standing in the living room, sword in hand. Seeing it was him, she sighed in relief, put down the sword, and sat back on the couch. "I told you, it's perfectly safe here. You being so tense is kind of strange here. Relax. Come on, let's eat." Xu Qing placed all the bags on the side of the couch, noticing Jiang He's gaze. "I bought you some daily essentials. We can organize them after eating." "Thank you." Noticing Xu Qing had paused, Jiang He asked curiously, "What's wrong? Shouldn't you add a direct object?" "What?" "For example, thank you, hero. Do I count as a hero? Or a good man? Or something else?" Xu Qing suddenly grew excited. Didn't every young person dream of roaming the world with a sword? "Thank you, hero," Jiang He reluctantly replied, never having heard such a strange request before. "It was nothing." Xu Qing waved his hand grandly, leaving Jiang He with an odd impulse she couldn't name, though she didn't know it was called wanting to roll her eyes. "Oh, all right, let's eat." The pork trotter rice was 14 yuan per box, tasty and filling. Opening the lid, the aroma immediately wafted out. It was said that back when Pony Ma, known online as the Flying Penguin, was trying to figure out how to get more servers up in SEG Plaza, he survived those long nights of frustration and uncertainty on bowl after bowl of pork trotter rice. Poor trotters, oh pork trotters. Jiang He was indeed hungry, having only had a bit of porridge and some buns last night. The way she ate, taking big bites, was full of gusto, nothing like the elegant, demure female heroes Xu Qing had seen on TV, who nibbled their food daintily. The two ate in silence, focusing on the savory sauce-drenched rice. Xu Qing finished his meal, alternating bites of pork trotter and rice, then wiped his mouth and drank a cup of water. Watching Jiang He's contented expression as she ate, he couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. "These are the clothes I got for you. I wasn't sure about your size, but based on your height, they should fit. Try them on after eating." He took out a paper bag and opened it. "I also bought you a dress. Wear it if you like, no pressure if you don't. And these are shoes, flat ones. They'll definitely be more comfortable than the straw shoes you've been wearing." He pulled out item after item, but paused briefly upon seeing a certain garment. Slowing his pace, he said, You should be able to figure out how to wear it yourself, but if not, I can find a tutorial video. There are a few sizes, just pick the one that fits." Jiang He watched him unpack with curiosity, nodding as he explained each item. "These, too, are for women, so I'll leave it to you to figure them out." Xu Qing tossed her the 7th space, packs, and continued rummaging. "This history book, though it's in a narrative style, is useful for you as an introduction. And this one on simplified and traditional characters. Try it out. Let's see if it's helpful. Feel free to use my toothpaste. This is a new toothbrush. Here's a cup for rinsing and a towel." After laying out everything for her, Xu Qing rubbed his temples, then opened Taobao, searched briefly, and ordered a digital drawing tablet. Whatever the case, teaching her basic computer use would be best. Baidu was like an encyclopedia. "All right, didn't sleep well last night?" Seeing the faint tiredness on Jiang He's face, Xu Qing quickly understood. He'd been tossing and turning until past midnight, too. "Get some rest later. Now, if there's anything you want to ask about after last night, go ahead." Jiang He, holding the 7th space package, glanced at it curiously before asking, "In this world, what's your identity?" "My identity? I'm an unemployed recent graduate, about to become a wage slave. Or to explain in terms you'd understand, well, it's like having finished the imperial exam, but not yet taking a post, just looking for something else to do for a living. A wealthy family? Hardly, just working class. There are many professions here, and not all scholars go into government. Jiang He seemed to understand partially, still categorizing him mentally as a landlord. How do I go back? I don't know. It seems difficult. How did you get here yesterday? Xu Qing asked, curious. Could it have been enlightening? I don't know either, Jiang He replied, a hint of confusion flashing in her eyes. Yesterday, I was chasing a thief. It was raining heavily, and I got lost in the woods, turned left, then right, and suddenly I saw these tall buildings. The woods? There aren't any woods nearby. Xu Qing scratched his chin, unsure what to make of it. They sat in silence on the couch for a moment before he coughed lightly and said, For now, just focus on living well here. We can think about getting you back later. Jiang He nodded quietly. By the way, what's your combat skill level? Xu Qing glanced at her long sword, curious if real martial arts from 1,200 years ago were indeed so amazing. Combat skill. I mean, how skilled are you? In the yin gang, I'm relatively strong. What's relatively strong? Did you practice any inner strength? Swordsmanship? Do you know any lightness skills? Xu Qing grew excited, moving to the window and pointing outside. Roughly, how high could you jump without getting hurt? Around. Jiang He looked out and pointed there. Huh? Just there. Xu Qing was puzzled. The second floor? That wasn't what he'd imagined. Even parkour athletes could jump from the third floor. She could probably go higher. She might just be holding back. With that in mind, he adjusted his expression and challenged, I don't believe it. It has to be higher. Maybe that spot too. Jiang He hesitated, lifting her hand a little higher. Xu Qing looked up. Fourth floor. What about inner strength? The 18 palms of the dragon? The longevity technique? The demonic arts? Xu Qing continued his questioning. Jiang He looked utterly puzzled, frowning as she asked, What's that? How did you train in martial arts, then? I've been training since I was a child. Do you think I could learn it? Xu Qing straightened up, making a few gestures and looking at her expectantly. You're too old. Jiang He glanced him up and down briefly, then shook her head. Even if you have determination and perseverance, you wouldn't achieve much. Oh, come on. It doesn't have to be great success, as long as I can learn something. How about I become your disciple? Is there some sort of strict tradition around accepting disciples? Xu Qing slapped his forehead. Was I being too abrupt? No worries, let's just... No, not really. It's all just martial tricks. There's no formal apprenticeship. Seeing his expression, Jiang He couldn't bear to refuse, so she stepped back a couple of steps, stabilized her stance, and said, To practice martial arts, you must start with training your waist. Training the waist starts with stance work, and force is generated from the ground up. Wait, are we starting already? Xu Qing was dumbfounded. Her decisiveness was astonishing. You're already of a certain age, and martial arts take a long time to master, bit by bit, accumulating over time. Is there a way to skip the stance work? How would you train without stance work? Jiang He asked, perplexed. Xu Qing hesitated. How long do I need to practice this stance? 3 years, maybe. Okay, well, try on those clothes first. If they don't fit, I can exchange them at the store. Xu Qing casually turned around, gathered the bag from the couch, and handed it to Jiang He. As for the rest, think it over. If you really don't understand, I'll figure something out to teach you. Not training anymore. Next time, for sure. 3 years of stance work. If he had that kind of patience, he'd have joined the army ages ago. Xu Qing glanced dejectedly at the sword on the table. Then, unwilling to give up, asked again, Can I just learn sword techniques? Your hands can't keep up with your eyes, and your eyes can't keep up with your hands. You'd only learn some flashy moves. Fine. After closing the door to her room, Jiang He went to try on the clothes. Xu Qing, left sitting on the couch, picked up Jiang He's sword out of boredom. After testing its weight and practicing a couple of stances, he put it back and sighed deeply. Inepsilon. His dream of being a martial arts hero had been shattered. No, he thought to himself, once they became closer, he'd have to coax some secret techniques out of her somehow. A moment later, Jiang He came out of the room, now dressed in a beige, long-sleeved knit sweater paired with jeans, her hair tied back with a simple string, looking clean and sharp. Xu Qing's eyes lit up. Clothes really make a person. This ancient girl in modern clothing looked pretty good. Everything fits well? Thank you, young hero. Jiang, he felt a little awkward in these clothes and tugged at the hem. Saying that title made her feel even more out of place. Xu Qing cheerfully waved his hand. It's nothing. He paused, studying Jiang he closely, then, rubbing his chin, said thoughtfully, Don't move, turn around for me. I forgot to buy you a proper hair tie. That string you're using looks odd, doesn't match the outfit. Just let your hair down for now. As Jiang he loosened her hair, letting it cascade down, Xu Qing nodded in satisfaction, and the last bit of mismatch faded away. Later tonight, I'll take you out for a walk and pick up a new hair tie. Don't let me forget. He gave her this instruction before pulling out a list of notes and questions he'd jotted down the night before. This girl was very cooperative, making things much easier for him, or rather, for both of them. Xu Qing appreciated dealing with smart people. It saved him from wasting energy on needless troubles. Fortunately, this ancient girl was only lacking in understanding, not intelligence. By afternoon, what are you doing? Hearing noises outside, Jiang he peeked out from her room, hesitated, then stepped into the living room to stand behind Xu Qing, eyeing the strange object in front of him. This is called a computer. Xu Qing paused his work, still wary from the time she'd destroyed the TV, and carefully explained its functions, including the kinds of things she might see on it. A TV was just a few hundred yuan, but this computer was worth 10 times that, a truly valuable item. Is the book difficult to read? Noticing her somewhat dejected expression, he asked. Yes, very difficult. Jiang he nodded slightly, after a pause. I'll go through it slowly. Take your time, no rush. After all, this is something no one else has ever experienced. If it were me, I'd probably do worse than you. Xu Qing reassured her, confirming that she wasn't about to kick his computer, then continued watching. What's that? Jiang he asked again. It's hard to explain. Just think of it as a 1,000-mile eye. I can see what's happening far away on this screen. Xu Qing held a pen, with a notebook in front of him, and the screen was showing a rebroadcast of the evening news, something he missed yesterday because she had smashed his TV, so he was catching up now. Xu Qing's background was worth mentioning. Although he was currently unemployed, he had started a side gig editing various movies during college, eventually becoming a small-time content creator online. It didn't earn much, but enough to live on. As for watching the news, it wasn't for editing material, just a regular habit. Yes, he was an enthusiast of these updates, in every sense. Jiang he didn't disturb him further, standing quietly by his side until the news broadcast ended. Xu Qing organized the notes he had taken in his notebook, tucked his pen in, and then she finally asked again, Don't you have to work? This is work. Xu Qing chuckled. In this world, making money takes brains. Are you a businessman? Not exactly, but close enough. Once you get familiar with this world, you'll understand. He then checked the data on his content creator account, explaining, right now, that's not important for you to understand. You should start with the basics like history, or at least modern development, to get a general idea. Jiang, he was silent, growing more convinced he was a wealthy young master. Oh, by the way, how skilled are your bosses in martial arts? Xu Qing asked, glancing at the movie clips in his account's dashboard. Very strong. Very strong, huh? He nodded, moved his mouse, and started a clip from the Jet Li version of The Swordsman, playing it in front of Jiang he's astonished gaze. The 6-minute edited fight scene was enough to shock Jiang He, especially with Bridget Lin's character wielding a needle that could practically move mountains. 1,000-mile, I weigh to see events from miles away. Amused by her reaction, Xu Qing pretended to be serious and asked, Are they as strong as this? Is it really that powerful? Hearing Xu Qing's question, Jiang He slowly closed her mouth, her expression turning serious as she shook her head. This skill, it's practically immortal. She truly couldn't imagine a mere needle wielding such power. It had literally torn an entire house apart. Jiang He looked down at her own hands. At most, she could use it as a concealed weapon to hit a target a few meters away, inflicting only minor injuries, probably not even piercing bone. A needle like that could hardly kill someone. How about this one? Still in shock, Jiang He saw Xu Qing pull up another video. This time, it was Kung Fu Hustle. All martial arts in the world are invincible, except against speed. An old man sat on a chair and shot himself in the head. Xu Qing explained, "That's a gun, a type of weapon with tremendous power, way stronger than your darts." As the movie played in slow motion, Jiang He couldn't grasp it fully. Her mind was still reeling from the earlier needle demonstration and the flashy martial arts moves that allowed people to fly through the air. If the gang's second-in-command used his pair of hammers to smash rocks, maybe with enough force, he could chip a piece off. But in the movie, people were sent flying straight into stone, shattering it. The body strength and force they showed were terrifying. Boom! Stephen Chow's character landed a palm strike that left a giant handprint on a building. Jiang He instinctively recoiled, her body tensing like a startled wildcat as she stared in disbelief at the screen. A moment later, her gaze shifted to Xu Qing. "Is this your kind of strength?" No. This is all fake." Seeing how seriously Jiang He was taking it, Xu Qing panicked, afraid she might try to spar with him. "But I saw it." That's something we made up and filmed using special effects. It's all fake, totally fake." "Really?" Jiang He's doubt was evident. "It's fake, really? Is it real or fake? Its martial arts are fake." Xu Qing felt helpless. The gap in their understanding was impossible to bridge. It was like they were from different worlds. With grave news. He moved his mouse around, searching on his computer for a moment, before pulling up a clip he'd edited from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, explaining as it played. "You see, in one world, it doesn't make sense to have so many different clothing styles. These are imagined versions of ancient warriors. No, they're imagined martial heroes in an ancient setting. With costumes, does that make sense?" "Not really." "Good. When you get used to this world, you'll understand what a movie is and what art means. Watch this." Xu Qing had no choice but to give Jiang He a crash course in modern culture. He hoped to teach her to use a computer when his tablet arrived in a few days. It even had voice input. In the meantime, though, he needed to learn more about Jiang He's world. As the thrilling duel between Jade Fox and Xu Lin played on the screen, Jiang He's attention drifted back to the earlier movie. "Is your gang leader's martial skill as high as this?" When they reached the bamboo forest fight scene, Xu Qing asked her again. If this wasn't convincing, he'd have to find Fearless or Kung Fu Jungle. "Pretty much," Jiang He replied casually. She glanced at the two characters dancing through the bamboo, then added, "Except for this kind of agility." "Oh, no lightness skill." Xu Qing looked a bit disappointed. To him, the most fascinating part of martial arts was that airy lightness. In a harmonious society, who wanted to fight all the time, skills had little practical use, except for agility. It looked cool and elegant. "We do, but most people specialize in one skill. The only one in our gang who could pull off such agility is our second boss, but her hand-to-hand combat skills aren't as good as these two." The movie scene ended, but Jiang He was still thinking about Stephen Chow's Buddhist palm strike from before. What inhuman power! She stared at the screen, her thoughts racing. It was hard to believe that anyone could reach such a level of skill. No, it was more like magic. Xu Qing, though, had stopped the movie and thought for a moment before searching online for a video of Wudong Master Chen demonstrating eagle claw technique, complete with shadowy hand movements. "Hey, can you do this?" He raised his eyebrows at Jiang He. "What is that? You just saw it. Like swish, swish, swish." Xu Qing waved his hands around, mimicking the video's movements. "Creating shadow effects with your hands, complete with sound. It's not that I don't believe you. I'm just curious." After accepting Jiang He's identity, his curiosity grew. Yesterday, she'd shown only a bit of dart-throwing skill. Otherwise, she seemed pretty ordinary. Jiang He's eyes flashed as she looked at the screen. Then she took a step back, got into position, and perfectly copied the video's moves. The sound of her movements cut through the air, leaving Xu Qing with his mouth half open, speechless. "Like this?" Yes. Xu Qing nodded fervently. Jiang He relaxed her stance and smiled at Xu Qing. "Let me know when you want to learn. I can teach you the basics." With that, She awkwardly tugged at her clothes, picked up her sword, and went back to her room, glancing at the chubby cat in the corner of the living room before shutting her door. Nothing comes free in this world. Jiang he had never fully trusted Xu Qing's intentions behind helping her. He claimed he just couldn't leave a stray cat behind. But a truly selfless person? That would be hard to believe. Now, she finally understood his intentions. He wanted to learn martial arts. Everything now made sense. Jiang he let out a breath, feeling much lighter as the weight lifted from her mind. Images from a movie replayed in her head. This world seems dangerous. She measured the room with her eyes, taking small steps along the walls. With her sword in hand, she started practicing in the confined space. Xu Qing didn't sneak up to listen at Jiang He's door. That would have been too creepy, and getting caught would be even worse. Instead, he casually browsed the news, checking for any unusual incidents elsewhere. But there was nothing. Last night, he'd barely slept, and after a few yawns, he couldn't hold out any longer. He closed his computer and returned to his bedroom to catch up on sleep. With a lady night sleeping across the hall, he drifted off with that thought, falling into an even stranger dream. When he awoke, it was already dusk. The golden light of sunset streamed through the windows, filling the room with a warm glow. Xu Qing checked the time, rubbed his face, got dressed, and decided it was time to take Jiang He out to explore this world. Just bring your eyes and ears. Don't speak casually. If you have questions, wait until we get back to ask. Don't jump suddenly, and definitely don't dash off somewhere. Just quietly stay by my side for one full round, got it? Xu Qing leaned against Jiang He's doorway, giving her a string of warnings, worried she might pull some martial stunt outside. In the digital age, it's critical to be cautious. Once Jiang He finished changing shoes and stamped her feet to get a feel, he gave her another thorough look. If he ignored the heroic spirit in her eyes and her calm, expressionless face, she could pass for a regular modern student. Smile. Jiang He looked at him silently. Forget it. You look kind of creepy without any expression. Xu Qing rubbed his nose, turned around to head out, and reminded her again, absolutely, don't move around. Just stroll outside like normal. It's safe. Put the sword down. Seeing Jiang He pick up her sword, he suddenly questioned whether bringing her outside was even a good idea. This girl really was inseparable from her sword. But thinking about it, it made sense. Being thrust into a completely unfamiliar world, it's only natural she'd feel insecure. Don't you have a dart? If you feel unsafe, just bring the dart. The streets are full of people like Mia. Xu Qing fumbled for a good word, gesturing at his own physique. Weaklings. They may look tall, but you could knock them down with a single punch. You get me? Not to brag, but if Jiang He actually threw a punch, he'd be on his knees begging her to spare him. Understood. Jiang He patted the dart holster at her waist, finally choosing to leave her sword behind. If you were a novel character, you'd be the type of cautious protagonist, strong beyond words. Xu Qing rambled on, feeling a thrill of novelty as he pulled out his phone and sneakily snapped a photo of Jiang He. She frowned, and he just grinned back at her, saying, "Let's go. First, we'll take a lap outside. Stick close to me." Without a walk outside, his whole spiel about things being from 1,200 years ago wouldn't have much weight with her. Dusk was approaching. The sun hadn't fully set, but a sliver of a new moon had already risen. After yesterday's heavy rain, the temperature had dropped, and a cool evening breeze was blowing. Xu Qing stood outside the building, looking around while catching a breath of fresh air, a strange feeling welling up inside him as he glanced at Jiang He standing beside him, taking an ancient person out for a walk. Who else would even think of this? Stay calm, cool, he murmured to Jiang He, hands stuffed in his pockets as he took a couple of steps, then pulled his hands out to casually get closer to her. Jiang He followed half a step behind, slightly tilting her head to observe her surroundings, her lips pressed together in silence. From a distance, it looked like he was the nervous one. This is called a residential complex, with individual units for each household. Over there's the main gate, and outside is the street. Shops line both sides, selling everything for daily life, clothes, food, whatever you need. As they walked, Xu Qing quietly explained. Fortunately, it was nearing dinner time, so there weren't many people around, making it easier for the two to wander freely. With ring above Nigerian Ira, they strolled over to the entrance, and before he could greet the security guard, Uncle Zhao, he noticed someone else nearby. A woman with big, permed black curls, a scarf around her neck, and a blue-red floral shirt, though the basket on her arm clashed with her stylish look. I have to say, Annie Chung, with her basket, was chatting with Uncle Zhao, laughing, until she suddenly stopped and looked over at Xu Qing and Jiang He. "What's up, Auntie?" Xu Qing asked, noticing her staring at Jiang He with her head tilted. "This girl looks familiar." "Your girlfriend?" Xu Qing? Uncle Zhao asked with a grin, reclining in his chair with a cigarette, turning to look at Jiang He too. Xu Qing suddenly grasped the downsides of being too chummy with neighbors, but he still took a half step forward, subtly positioning himself in front of Jiang He. "A friend, just a friend." "Oh, got it." Uncle Zhao chuckled knowingly, nodding with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Wait, isn't this the girl with the sword I saw on the stairs yesterday?" Auntie Cheng's gaze lingered on Jiang He as she recalled. Xu Qing's heart skipped a beat. Jiang He's attire yesterday had indeed been too eye-catching. "A sword?" Uncle Zhao looked confused. "It was this long, all black." Annie Chung gestured, emphasizing her description. "Cosplay." Xu Qing interjected, laughing, and shot Jiang He a reassuring look. Jiang He didn't seem to get it, merely watching the three of them curiously. "It's something young people enjoy, you wouldn't get it. It's like dressing up as zombies or fairies, you know? It's a subculture." Xu Qing explained as he gently grabbed Jiang He's arm, feeling her lightly resist before relenting, and led her away with a casual, "All right, we're off. Better head back to cook, Annie." Now he understood what guilty conscience meant. "What do you mean I don't get it? Isn't that called cosplay? My grandson once dressed as a zombie for that. They even dress up as that sort of thing." "Exactly. Kids today are way more creative than we ever were back then." Their voices faded as Xu Qing and Jiang He walked further away. Finally feeling relieved, Xu Qing turned back, noticing Jiang He had pulled her arm free and was eyeing him. "Did she see you yesterday?" he asked. Jiang He simply nodded without a word. "So, before I got home, you met her on the stairs, but she ignored you, or maybe she spoke and you didn't respond, then she just walked away?" Jiang He blinked, thought about it, and nodded before shaking her head. "What does that mean?" Xu Qing froze for a moment before realizing, amused. This girl was really obedient. He told her not to talk, so she just didn't talk. A bit unexpected. "Let me guess, you met her, she didn't say anything, looked at you, and went upstairs." Xu Qing said. This time he was right. Jiang He nodded, then turned her gaze toward the road, studying the passing vehicles with curiosity. At least she only glanced. If it had been someone more nosy or another guard, things could have gotten complicated. Xu Qing felt relieved, glancing around as he continued walking and explaining, "That's called a car. It's basically four wheels and a metal shell, like a horse-drawn carriage, but without the horses. You could think of it as the horses being hidden inside, running to make it move." They walked side by side down the sidewalk, Xu Qing speaking while Jiang He listened, both falling silent when others came close, and eventually arriving at a crosswalk. "That there is the 1,000-mile eye." At the crosswalk, Xu Qing pointed at the surveillance camera atop the traffic light pole, eager for her to understand just how dangerous this world was for outsiders. Everything we watched earlier was captured by this. They're everywhere. Right now, as we're standing here, there's someone 1,000 miles away watching us. But don't worry, they don't usually pay attention. No one's that idle. But if you start doing something unusual like scaling walls or anything suspicious, officers will be alerted and come here instantly. Jiang He's expression shifted as she stared at the camera. "What are you thinking?" Xu Qing asked, noticing her reaction and glancing at the camera warily. "You're not thinking of taking it down, are you?" Jiang He glanced at the iron dart in her hand, then looked back at Xu Qing. "Put that thing away." Jiang He was pretty obedient outside, and she managed to avoid the surveillance cameras. This is called a traffic light. When the red light is on, it means you can't go. When the green light is on, you can cross. Xu Qing gestured to the traffic light above and continued explaining. This is also part of the laws. If you don't follow it, not only is it dangerous with all these cars, but you'll also be breaking the law. Make sure to remember this well. The two of them, one tall and one short, stood at the crosswalk, looking up at the red light countdown with solemn expressions. They looked a bit silly. For Xu Qing, who was used to staying at home watching movies, both introducing a person from ancient times to modern concepts and going shopping with a girl were pretty interesting. Walking Jiang He along the street, his initial tension had gradually faded. Jiang He followed quietly beside him, silently observing this modern world. Everything on the street seemed new to her. The streetlights, greenery, shops along the road, and even the honking cars would make her look over. Do you like any of these? Xu Qing hadn't forgotten his promise to get her a hair tie from earlier that day. Stopping by a small stall on the roadside, he looked at the various trinkets and asked Jiang He, "And what about these? Do you like them?" He picked up a fluffy headband with ears, thinking of putting it on Jiang He for fun. After reconsidering, he decided against it and simply raised his hand to gesture. Just by looks alone, as long as she didn't speak or make any distinct gestures, she already looked like a modern person. No need for extra decorations. Jiang He remained silent, casting a glance at the headband in his hand, then shifting her gaze to the other items on display, studying each one. After a moment, Xu Qing picked out a blue hair tie with two delicate little butterflies. Seeing that Jiang He was simply looking without making any move, he asked the stall owner for the price, scanned the payment, and handed the hair tie to Jiang He. "Here, this one's good for tying your hair." Jiang He took it, looked it over for a couple of seconds, and then tried stretching it to figure out its use before tying up her hair with it. With her hair tied up, she looked a bit less gentle but more poised. Xu Qing glanced at her for an extra moment before turning to continue walking with her. As night gradually fell, the streets became busier, and Xu Qing spoke less. They turned into a small diner and sat in a corner. Xu Qing called over the owner and ordered 2 plates of stir-fried pancakes, along with a dish of smashed cucumbers. Jiang City's stir-fried pancakes were quite a specialty. The pancakes were cut into thin strips and stir-fried with bean sprouts. It could also be cooked with green beans or cabbage, but the bean sprouts gave the best texture, full of fragrance and flavor. This type of small diner not only had authentic flavors but also large portions. Xu Qing had been eating here since high school and still occasionally came even after graduating from college. It with Tildeni, this is a place for eating. The meal at noon was also bought here, and yesterday's delivery came from here too. The delivery person bought it here, brought it to my place, and I paid him. With the noisy chatter in the restaurant, Xu Qing muttered to Jiang He in a low voice from their corner. Their table was by the window, and Jiang He, gazing out at the colorful street lights, remained silent with a complex expression. The passers-by, flashing neon lights, and steady flow of cars, all of it was so foreign. She didn't belong here. Noticing Jiang He's low spirits, Xu Qing gradually lowered his voice, eventually stopping altogether and leaning back his chair to look at the lady knight sitting across the table. If she couldn't go back, alone in this world, without even an identity, that would mean no job, no income, no permanent residence, no ability to travel, and not even the possibility of marriage. She would be left to wander in some small corner or work in a hidden factory, living out the rest of her days with no future, unless she revealed her identity and submitted herself to being controlled. But Xu Qing didn't think Jiang He would willingly be anyone's guinea pig. If given a choice, she'd probably rather hide in a forest than be controlled by others. When the owner brought over their stir-fried pancakes, Jiang He finally looked away from the window, and Xu Qing also shifted his gaze. He took 2 sets of disposable chopsticks from a container, handing 1 pair to Jiang He. "Let's eat." Jiang He responded for the first time since they'd gone out, lowering her head to eat. Seeing that she seemed comfortable with the food, Xu Qing relaxed. After taking a few bites, he got up, gesturing to Jiang He to let her know, and then went to the fridge to get a bottle of mineral water and a beer. Back at the table, He pushed the water toward Jiang He and used his chopsticks to pop open the beer bottle, drinking a few sips straight from it. Leaving this lady night here, things were going to be a lot more complicated than he had thought. One step at a time. Lost in thought, Xu Qing didn't even add garlic to his dish. Eating a few bites, he washed them down with some beer. By the time Jiang He put her chopsticks down, his plate was also empty. He took his last sip of beer, let out a satisfied burp, and got up to pay. The two of them left the diner as the city lights shone brightly, and the night had just begun. Neon lights flashed alternately, the streets were packed, and the lively sounds of people and honking cars merged into a vibrant scene. Xu Qing looked up at the night sky, let out a long breath, and smiled at Jiang He, who was obediently following by his side. "Let's go home." They walked in silence. By the time they reached home, it was 7:30, just as the evening news was ending. Xu Qing didn't pay it much attention, locking the door before glancing at Jiang He, who had sat down on the couch, seemingly lost in thought. "So, do you believe it now?" Jiang He moved her head slightly in response, lifting her gaze to meet his. After a moment of silence, she pulled out one of her iron darts and rubbed her fingers along the scratches on it. "Well, it's not all bad. Look around. Everyone is living in peace, enjoying life. There's stir-fried pancakes, cola, beer, computers. No need to worry about getting randomly attacked, though maybe still a little." Xu Qing tried to comfort her, but he rambled, unsure of what he was saying. After a pause, he walked over and sat down beside her on the couch. "Honestly, if we could sort out the identity issue, you'd be able to enjoy a lot of things you couldn't before. Even if you used that strength of yours just to haul bricks, you could live a comfortable life. That's actually a good thing. Life is short. Having to sleep with one eye open is exhausting. This prosperous world was worlds apart from ancient times. I want to go home." Jiang He gripped her iron dart tightly, feeling the slight pain as the point pressed into her palm. Xu Qing sighed, "But you can't go back." Jiang He fell silent. The room was quiet except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. Occasionally, the sound of cars from outside and a cough from a neighbor upstairs could be heard faintly. After a long while, Jiang He's shoulders slumped. She tossed her dart onto the table and asked softly, "How do we fix my identity? I'm not an official, so I don't fully understand it, but we'll figure something out. First, you'll need to blend in without raising suspicion." Xu Qing looked at her and reassured her, "Don't worry, I'll help you." "Thank you, young hero." Jiang He clasped her hands in gratitude. After a pause, she added, "But if it's too much trouble, it's necessary. Identity is important." Xu Qing felt a surge of pride at her calling him young hero and looked around the table before leaning over toward the trash bin. "Where's that paper I sorted out yesterday?" Jiang He blinked. "You crumpled it up and threw it away." "I know. It should be in here somewhere." Xu Qing poked around the trash bin with his hand. "What happens if we can't solve the identity card issue?" Jiang He handed a crumpled piece of paper to Xu Qing, asking her question. "Then you'll be a black household, unable to do anything." Xu Qing replied offhandedly. Seeing Jiang He standing there motionless, he thought for a moment before explaining further. "Without an ID, you can't enjoy any basic rights. Living expenses depend on money, and except for some shady factories, almost every job requires an ID. That's the first issue. You won't be able to find work to support yourself. Second, you won't have your own place and can't even rent anywhere. Whether it's a hotel, like an inn, or any other place, they'll need an ID. And forget about long-distance travel. No trains, no high-speed rail, not even long-distance buses. There aren't any horses here, so if you want to travel far, you'll need a vehicle. Third, if there's any legal dispute, you can't. Well, never mind. It's complicated. Basically, if anything happens, the authorities won't step in since you can't legally file a complaint without an identity." For Jiang He, most of Xu Qing's points didn't seem like real issues, at least for now. In her view, it only affected living arrangements and earning money. "So, if I can find a way to earn money and find a place to live, then the ID isn't that crucial. No, there's a lot more you wouldn't be able to do." Xu Qing shook his head. "From small things like getting a phone, online accounts, or a bank card, to major life events like marriage, having kids, and registering them. All of that requires an ID. If you don't have one, these things are totally out of reach. If someone only wants to survive without ties or responsibilities, an ID might not matter. But once she familiarizes herself with this world, it'll be essential for living a normal life. You couldn't have come 20 years earlier, could you? These days, getting registered went from easy mode to hell mode. Xu Qing grumbled, standing to get his laptop, searching online for solutions to the black household issue. Decades of improved registration systems have left few loopholes, making it almost impossible for someone to legally exist without records. Or you could try seeking help from this world authorities. You might get good treatment, but you could also lose your freedom. Xu Qing threw out the idea casually. Since this situation is so unusual, I don't know what could happen. I think you'd probably be treated well, but who knows? It might not be as simple as that, and you'd struggle to live a normal life. You gonna turn me into the authorities? No, it's just, never mind. Go study. Learn some history or something. Once you understand this world, you could decide for yourself. Jiang He pressed her lips together, pausing before saying, Am I causing trouble by staying here? It's fine. Just don't start any fights or make a scene, and everything's okay. Xu Qing clicked his mouse, while Wintermelon jumped up onto the desk, nudging Xu Qing's arm with its head, meowing. Oops, I totally forgot to feed you. He stroked the cat's back, picked up the chubby Wintermelon, and took out some cat food to pour into its bowl. If there's nothing else, get back to studying. All right. Without another word, Jiang He glanced at him deeply, then turned and went back to her room. As night deepened, Xu Qing stretched out on the couch around 10, wiggling the mouse to turn off his computer. His search hadn't yielded much, with most of the answers being old or irrelevant. Rain obeyed Epsilon. Leaning back, he thought for a moment before grabbing his phone and opening WeChat to message a friend. His old buddy, Qin Hao, now a community officer, hopefully passed his probation. Qin Hao responded quickly, and after some casual chat, Xu Qing decided not to mention his problem directly. Instead, he arranged a barbecue meetup for the weekend. Since his friend worked in the public sector, he'd probably know something, hopefully. After wrapping everything up, Xu Qing went to the bathroom, ready to shower. Realizing he wasn't alone in the house anymore, he went back to his room to grab pajamas before coming out again, looking at Jiang He's door. He hesitated, but decided against telling her to bathe. People from the past would have their own habits, especially since he hadn't bought her any sleepwear yet. One day in, one day out. Skipping a shower wasn't a big deal. He finished bathing, added some water to Wintermelon's bowl, turned off the living room lights, and went back to his room to sleep. Not long after, the door to Jiang He's room opened a crack. Peeking out to check, she scurried quietly to the bathroom, carrying a change of clothes. For the next 2 days, Jiang He barely left the apartment. During the day, she studied 2 history books with some effort. In the evening, she'd go for a walk with Xu Qing around the neighborhood, strengthening her understanding, and then they'd grab dinner at a small restaurant. By Saturday, a handwriting tablet Xu Qing had ordered from Taobao had arrived. He connected it to his computer, and it could recognize handwritten traditional characters and accurately transcribe audio. He began teaching Jiang He how to use the computer. He'd also been busy downloading a ton of history videos for her to watch during her free time. What's that? In the afternoon, as Jiang He sat by the computer, she grew tired of watching videos and curiously looked at the cat food bag in Xu Qing's hand. She'd seen him feed the cat multiple times, but the little pellets didn't look edible. Cat food, Xu Qing replied. Cat food. It's food made specifically for cats. You guys make food for cats. Jiang He stared at the chubby cat, her worldview shifting once again. Xu Qing sighed. It's not what you think. It's manufactured, not grown. No one actually grows crops for cats. Knock, knock. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Jiang He, no longer as guarded as when she'd first arrived, watched Xu Qing open the door and thank the delivery guy before closing it. I have something to do tonight. I'm meeting a friend to ask about your identity problem. You stay here and behave. If anything happens, Xu Qing placed the delivery food on the table, adding, I'll teach you how to use the computer to contact me. Don't go wandering around. Got it. Jiang nodded, unwrapping a burger and taking a bite. The odd food tasted pretty good, and she found she liked it. But why is cat food made like that? Can't the cat eat this? Jiang still couldn't wrap her head around the idea. Was feeding cats specially made food an example of extravagance? It's unhealthy, Xu Qing said offhandedly. Jiang stopped chewing. The burger suddenly didn't taste as good. When it came to explaining why humans eat junk food while cats get fancy cat food, Xu Qing struggled to find a good answer and ended up brushing it off with a vague, "You'll understand later." Happiness, after all, is something felt, not easily explained. As the evening grew darker, Xu Qing left his small penguin account running on the computer, opened the chat window, and reminded himself repeatedly that he wouldn't just talk through the screen. He'd use the 1,000-mile voice feature. He then left home alone, taking the bus to meet Qin Hao at their agreed spot. "Hey, Howsy, where are you?" "Over here. Over here." Qin Hao, who had arrived first, was already sitting in a corner of the food stall, munching on edamame and waving him over. "Hey, you're looking darker. It's so late, I almost didn't see you." Spotting Qin Hao, Xu Qing laughed as he walked over. "Officer Qin, hard at work, I see." "Oh, you know it's hard work," Qin Hao said, waving him to sit down. "Here, have a drink." "Can police officers drink alcohol?" "Of course we can. I'm off duty, what's stopping me?" Qin Hao tugged at his clothes. "See, plain clothes." "All right, let's order." They ordered 20 skewers each of beef and lamb, 10 skewers of leeks, 4 skewers of kidneys, 2 grilled eggplants, and a case of beer. A perfect spread. Neither of them liked the fancier dishes. They preferred the basics of barbecue. If they weren't full, they'd just order more until they were satisfied. "So, how's the job going? Any noble thoughts about being a glorious officer?" "Noble my a asterisk asterisk. It's nothing like I imagined." Qin Hao's face filled with exasperation. "I dreamed of grappling with criminals, maybe taking a hit, or heroically saving a damsel. None of that happened. Every day, it's just trivial stuff you wouldn't believe." He continued, "People calling about breakups, neighborhood squabbles, I have to mediate, 2 old ladies screaming insults at each other through their doors while I stand between them. Ugh. I haven't even seen a thief. It's just mediation, mediation, mediation. I can't understand where all these problems come from." "Hey, that just means people are living in peace. Isn't that good?" Xu Qing chuckled. "Does every community officer have a hero dream like yours?" This buddy of his had dreamed of becoming a cop since they were kids, though he had bawled his eyes out when he found out the height requirement was at least 1.7 meters, which he just missed. Back in middle school, already taller than 1.7 meters, Xu Qing comforted him, suggesting that if he bulked up, he might get in on an exception. That started Qin Hao's lifelong journey with muscles. Luckily, the height requirement was eventually removed in favor of a jump height test, which had Qin Hao training high jumps day and night. Now, he'd finally made it. "You know, I'm getting paranoid. Just before you got here, I was watching the street over there," Qin Hao said, lowering his voice and pointing to the road. "I was picturing some criminal coming out with a knife, and me leaping across the table to fight him. I got the whole scene in my head." "Stop dreaming." Xu Qing couldn't help feeling a bit guilty. A knife-wielding criminal. Wasn't that pretty much how Jiang appeared when she first arrived? No Thailand body. Wait, she had a sword. Thankfully, it had been pouring rain that day, so the streets were nearly empty. They bantered for a while, and soon, the 40 meat skewers arrived. They clinked their beer bottles together and dug in. "I've got a question for you, actually. Not sure if you'd know, though." Xu Qing asked casually, having already downed 7 or 8 skewers. "Shoot, what is it?" Qin Hao kept his head down, battling his food. "Well, hypothetically, if a homeless person had lost their memory and wanted to get an ID to work but had no proof of identity, what would they do?" Gulp, gulp." Qin Hao downed half his bottle, took a deep breath, and replied, "They can't. It's impossible." "Impossible? Why?" "Because they be a black household." "What can you do?" "They need an ID because they're undocumented, not the other way around," Xu Qing retorted. "Is this for a friend of yours?" "A black household?" Qin Hao asked, suddenly curious. "My great-uncle's neighbor's nephew asked me. His friend got a complicated situation. Get out of here. Qin Hao laughed and swore. Unless they can provide proof, like finding their parents or doing a DNA test, it's impossible. There's no way you can just pop up out of nowhere and ask for an ID. Xu Qing quietly chewed on his skewer, gazing at the street, and after a while asked, "So if you guys find someone without an ID, like a homeless person, what do you do with them?" "What would we do? Unless they're suspicious, we just question and investigate a bit to see if they're a wanted criminal." "What kind of questioning?" "It's wait, are you hiding something?" Qin Hao's brow furrowed, suspecting something unusual. "What would I be hiding? You've barely started, and you're already paranoid. Do you think I'm hiding a fugitive and asking you, an officer, to help them fake an identity?" Xu Qing shot him a look of disdain. "Guess you're right." Qin Hao thought about it, and figured Xu Qing probably wasn't serious. He clinked bottles with Xu Qing again, drank, then grabbed another skewer. "So we'd start by asking basic info to see if they can explain their identity. If they play dumb, then we run the 3 checks. 3 checks? What are they? Check for missing persons, DNA to check against missing children databases, or see if they're wanted. And if they pass all 3? If they pass, hey, why all the questions?" Qin Hao looked at him, puzzled. "Just keeping the conversation going. We're 2 guys. What else are we supposed to talk about?" "Romance." Xu Qing mocked. "Forget it. If I ask you any more, you'll probably cuff me." He placed his hands on the table, joking. "Want to run a check on me? I might just be a missing person that my parents picked up." "Yeah, right. I bet you're from South Mountain Mental Hospital," Qin Hao scoffed. "If the 3 checks don't flag them, we then check foreign entrance or mental health records. You, my friend, are definitely in the mental health category. What if they still don't match?" "No match. We let them go. What else would we do? They haven't committed a crime." Xu Qing felt something was off. "But what about an ID? Aren't you supposed to help them with that? They need proof to apply." "No proof. Then it's not possible." Xu Qing was getting a headache. "They're not criminals. Why can't they get one?" "Because they don't have proof." Qin Hao burped, poking the table with a skewer as he explained. "Look, say, hypothetically, I grab a knife and stab you." "Don't stab me. Go stab someone else." Xu Qing scowled. "Fine. Let's say you took a knife and stabbed someone else. Then you got plastic surgery in Korea, returned to Jiang City or wherever, claimed memory loss, no history, no identity, and try to start fresh. Is that okay?" Xu Qing fell silent. So Qin Hao laughed, holding the skewer like a sage. "Anyone who exists leaves a trace. No one appears out of thin air. And if someone does, it means there's a problem." He waggled his head, tossed the skewer aside, and took another. "Every step leaves a trace. That's the golden rule, said by Edmund Locard, the father of forensics. Wake up. You're just a community cop handling bickering old ladies. S***T. After 3 rounds of drinks, they nearly finished the skewers, and only 2 bottles of beer remained in the case. Qin Hao, his face flushed, boasted about becoming a detective, solving big cases, and even making it on a TV someday. Yeah, you're the best." Xu Qing, feeling a bit tipsy himself but still holding his own thanks to his dad's inherited drinking tolerance, said, "Can you go home? Don't let tomorrow's mediation get messed up over some old lady's squabble." "Screw mediation. Boss, check please." "I got it." They didn't argue much over the bill. Xu Qing just paid it straightforwardly. After walking Qin Hao to the curb to catch a cab, he headed back to the food stall and, after some thought, asked the stall owner to pack a few meat skewers and fish tofu. As the gentle night breeze carried the smoky scent of barbecue far into the distance, Xu Qing found himself strangely craving a cigarette. He patted his pockets, then remembered he'd quit. He couldn't help but laugh. He'd taken on a bit of trouble, but it was kind of fun. He wondered if the moon in the Tang Dynasty had looked as round as it did now. Looking up at the vast night sky, he imagined it as an endless scroll of history, full of lives and stories long buried in time. And now one of those grains of dust had jumped out, and he was the one who'd stumbled across it. It was 9:30 p.m. when Xu Qing returned home. Jiang was still on the couch, watching a video on her computer, while Wintermelon lay on her lap, purring contentedly as she stroked his fur. Seeing the scene of a person and a cat on the sofa, Xu Qing felt a subtle warmth inside. He lifted the bag in his hand and said, "I thought you might be hungry, so I brought some more food back." "Thanks." Young hero. Not a big deal." Xu Qing waved his hand and placed the barbecue bag on the table, opening it up before fetching 2 cartons of yogurt from the fridge and passing one to Jianghe. Smelling the alcohol on him, Jianghe wrinkled her nose. "You drink a lot?" "Not much, just a few bottles." Xu Qing popped open the yogurt lid and demonstrated. "This is yogurt. You're supposed to lick the lid first." The best part of yogurt was always on the lid, a mandatory ritual. Jianghe mimicked him, sticking out her tongue to lick the lid, and her eyes lit up. "Tastes good, right?" "Very good." "Yeah. Hurry up and eat it while it's still warm." Xu Qing chuckled, glanced at her computer screen, and paused the video for her before heading to his bedroom to grab his pajamas and take a shower. The feeling of coming home to a lit room and someone waiting brought a sense of coziness he hadn't experienced in a while. With how comfortable life is nowadays, you can enjoy a shower daily. No need to save water for me. 10 minutes later, Xu Qing emerged, drying his hair and looking for the hairdryer. And that clothing matter, all taken care of, right? Jianghe blinked, taking a moment to understand what he was talking about, then looked down without answering. Seeing her reaction, Xu Qing didn't press further. Noticing it was already 10 p.m., he dried his hair and showed her how to use the dryer, then turned off the computer and headed to bed. R.A. Beta. He fell asleep quickly, feeling warm and drowsy. In the living room, Jianghe studied the hairdryer for a while. Hearing that Xu Qing's room had gone quiet, she went to her bedroom to find her clothes. Although the sleepwear Xu Qing had bought was modest, she still felt uncomfortable and, after glancing at her usual clothes, picked them up to head to the bathroom. Her gaze lingered momentarily on her undergarments in the corner. She reached behind to touch her back, frowning before heading directly to the bathroom. The sound of running water echoed through the quiet night, carrying a sense of solitude. As for the future, Jianghe could only take things step by step, hiding her uncertainty and working hard to understand this new world. Fortunately, she had encountered a kind-hearted young hero and could slowly adapt to everything here. That night passed peacefully. The next day was a weekend, the perfect excuse to sleep in, but Xu Qing did the opposite, waking up early. Before sunlight even touched his face, he was already up, sitting in the living room and re-watching last night's news. Soon, Jianghe's door opened. She came out, slightly sweaty, glanced at Xu Qing taking notes with a small notepad, then headed to wash up. News watching required filtering out information and noting down key points, a skill Xu Qing was adept at. He could now instinctively extract important details from a mountain of data. Like when he first noticed Jianghe's straw shoes. If those shoes hadn't seemed so out of place, he might have brushed it off, and things could have gone in a completely different direction. Thinking of those shoes, he paused, looking over at the trash can where the worn-out shoes lay. "Working again?" Jianghe asked after washing up, still not quite grasping the economy of this world. Sitting at home, using 1,000-mile I to watch others. Was that really a job? Frowning, she thought for a moment before asking suspiciously, "Are you an officer?" Officers use surveillance to keep the peace, and it reminded her of what Xu Qing was doing. "No, I'm not. If I were, sorting out your identity would be much easier." Xu Qing almost mentioned turning her over to the authorities, but on second thought, even if he were an officer, he'd never turn her in. A martial hero from ancient times. How fun is that? Hungry? It's a rare early morning, so I'll go grab breakfast. Seeing Jianghe unoccupied, Xu Qing handed over the computer so she could continue learning. She had already figured out how to switch videos, which was progress. "Okay, you want to come along?" Jianghe hesitated a moment before shaking her head. "It's just nearby, no need." "All right, I'll go alone. You stay here." After reminding her to stay put, Xu Qing took his phone and headed out into the morning sun to get breakfast. The breeze was mild, the sky clear. At the residential complex entrance, a few neighbors gathered after breakfast, chatting in hushed voices. Uncle Zhao, the security guard, looked particularly grave, listening silently without joining in. Su, spotting him from afar, Aunt Chung, full of mystery, waved him over. "What's up, Aunt Chung? Uncle Chun? You guys planning some big secret?" Xu Qing asked curiously, joining the group of elderly residents. "Did you hear any strange noises in your sleep lately?" Aunt Chung asked in a hushed voice as the others looked over. "Noises?" Xu Qing scratched his head. "Nope, I slept just fine." "What's up?" "A thief. A thief would be better." She slapped her thigh, opened her mouth, then turned to look at Chun Igua. "Uncle Chun, what's going on?" Xu Qing was puzzled. "We might have a haunting here." Chun Igua frowned as he shook the leash of his big black dog. Hazy saw something, been barking like crazy in the middle of the night. He paused, his expression grave as he scanned the neighbors. "A few nights ago, something spooked it so bad it hid under the bed with its tail between its legs and wouldn't come out. And that's when I knew something was off." Old Wong also said he was half asleep when the dog's barking woke him, and he saw a shadow outside his window. Aunt Chung added, gesturing, "Just like that, whoosh, gone in a flash." Huh? Xu Qing was bewildered, glancing around at the group before fixing his gaze on Uncle Zhao. "Uncle Zhao, did you see anything?" Uncle Zhao's hand trembled as he held his cigarette. Then, taking a deep drag, he exhaled slowly, looked at the sky in hesitation, and finally said, "I didn't see it, but I did catch it on tape." At his age, as a staunch atheist, he was suddenly scared. A haunting for real. The group entered the security room to review the surveillance footage. Chung Yulan was already sweating, hesitating before nervously stepping in. Capturing a ghost on camera, it was terrifying. Xu Qing was feeling uneasy too. He was almost certain that this ghost was Jiang He. "Please don't let her face be visible." "That's the one." Uncle Zhao fiddled with the monitor, bringing up footage from a few nights before, then turned to look at the group. "Don't be scared. It'll just be a brief moment." Chung Yulan took a step back, exchanging glances with Xu Qing. "Xiao Su, you're young. You stand in front." Xu Qing scratched his head. Whatever comes, he'd face it. Let's see what they actually recorded. With a serious expression, Uncle Zhao hit play. The screen displayed the dark night scene, with no movement yet. The group held their breath, stretching their necks, anxiously waiting for that eerie figure to appear. Moments later, the screen shifted. It moved. It moved. "What's that? It's real." The crowd gasped, and Xu Qing quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Only a black shadow quickly flashed by on the screen, too fast to tell what it was. "There's more." Uncle Zhao switched the angle and looked back at them before hitting play again. Under the moonlight, the shadow floated from the wall corner, rising up along the high wall, and then floating outside. On camera, a large, human-like shadow floated quickly past, looking terrifyingly real. Before anyone could react, Uncle Zhao played another clip, this one from dawn, with a bit more light. The image was clearer, showing the black shadow rapidly gliding along the wall, then vanishing out of sight. The video stopped, leaving everyone speechless, feeling a chill down their spines. This, Chung Yulan, dumbfounded, rubbed her arms and took a step back. So frightening. Should we call the police? Do the police catch ghosts? Then what do we do? I heard the badge on their hats wards off evil. They won't be scared. Hold on. Uncle Chin looked away from the footage, still a bit rattled but resolute. We'd best keep this quiet. What? Chung Yulan's voice jumped several pitches. Think about it. If our complex has ghosts and the word spreads, who's going to rent here? Lao Yang. Do you think you can still sell your apartment? That's right. We need to discuss this carefully. Lao Yang, who had already taken out his phone, snapped to attention at Uncle Chen's words. He was selling his apartment, ghosts or not. It wasn't his problem. But if buyers found out and used it to bargain down the price, he'd lose big. Yes, if we scare away the younger tenants, the complex will only get quieter, and then this thing could get even more active, Xu Qing agreed. His heart was pounding. It was definitely Jiang He. She had snuck out in the middle of the night. Who knows how many other cameras might have caught her. The possible fallout made Xu Qing anxious. He quickly suggested, let's keep observing. Maybe she was just passing by. By the way, Uncle Zhao, was there anything on the footage from last night? He turned to Uncle Zhao with the question, who took out a cigarette, holding it between his lips without lighting it. He thought for a moment, then shook his head. Nothing last night. Exactly, just passing by. Let's watch a few more nights before deciding. Lao Yang agreed. The group, still worried, stepped outside. In the daylight, the chilling feeling finally faded a little. Should we hire someone to perform a ritual? Do you know anyone who does that? I remember someone who has a Buddha statue at home and prays daily. I'll ask him. Xu Qing listened to their conversation, but didn't linger. He skipped buying breakfast and headed straight home. Jiang he was still in the living room, looking puzzled when he returned so quickly. She looked over curiously. You snuck out in the middle of the night? Yeah. Jiang he hesitated only briefly before nodding. For the first few nights since arriving, she had been cautiously slipping out to explore the surroundings. Xu Qing was briefly stunned by her straightforward admission. How do I know? The surveillance. I mean, the 1,000-mile, I recorded it. If any other cameras caught a clear shot of her climbing walls and leaping around like some kind of Spider-Man, she'd be an instant viral sensation. Rubbing his forehead, Xu Qing sat down on the couch, holding her gaze. What were you wearing? That black outfit. Jiang he pointed toward her room, then, noticing his look, asked, Did I cause any trouble? After a pause, she added, I was masked. Masked? Xu Qing was taken aback. Yes. Jiang he nodded. He exhaled in relief. As long as her face didn't show, no one could trace her here. Keeping an ancient-era person is seriously nerve-wracking. If you want to go out again, let me know. I'll take you out. As long as you're staying here, you can't just run off on your own. Xu Qing composed himself, speaking in a firm, serious tone. Your identity in this world is extremely dangerous. Don't go running around, okay? Jiang he blinked. Did I cause you trouble? Everyone outside thinks it's a ghost. A ghost? Yeah, a ghost. Annoyed, Xu Qing pulled out his phone and searched the web. Are there any movies where an ancient person time travels to the modern world and gets shot by accident? Asking urgently. Keep watching those videos. Putting his phone away, he leaned back on the couch. Once you're familiar with this society, you'll understand just how dangerous your situation is. Good thing you met me. If you'd drawn a sword on Aunt Cheng, you'd be in big trouble by now. Draw sword. Aunt Cheng gets scared. Calls the police. The police confront her. She lashes out. They gun her down. Xu Qing had mentally mapped out her likely demise. When someone with martial prowess encounters the law, things rarely end well. If she were a little weaker, she might just be arrested, but with her skills, it'd be hard for the police to take her in alive. Jiang he fell silent. If I'm causing too much trouble, I can. You want to leave? Xu Qing raised an eyebrow. Better start learning. I'll order some takeout. What do you want? A burger? Chicken wrap? Stir-fried pancake? Watching him stand up, Jiang he's expression softened a bit. Something healthy. Thank you, young hero. This man was quite kind. Healthy. Xu Qing scratched his chin. Then how about some cat food? Jiang he's face turned blank. She took back her earlier thought. He was a pain. Xu Qing didn't notice, busying himself with Winter Melon the cat, cleaning the litter box, then heading back to his room to gather some clothes for the washing machine. If you have any clothes to wash, you can throw them in here. This is a washing machine, a machine that washes clothes. Super convenient. Okay. Jiang he responded, then returned to her room, coming back with the black clothes she'd worn that night. She eyed the washing machine cautiously, hesitating as she placed them inside. Will it get them clean? She asked. Cleaner than hand washing. Xu Qing dumped in detergent, but then noticed a strip of white fabric poking out from her clothes in the machine. He pulled it out, revealing a long white cloth. Xu Qing's expression shifted, barely reacting before Jiang. He snatched it back, head down, and dashed back to her room. Watching her retreat, Xu Qing was astonished. No way. Are you foot binding? And you can still scale walls? The washing machine started rumbling, emitting its characteristic noise. Jiang He's ears turned slightly red as she continued watching a history video on the couch. Beside her, Xu Qing was petting Winter Melon, occasionally sneaking glances at her, and then at her feet. Something wasn't right. When she'd changed her shoes the other day, her feet had seemed perfectly fine. Recalling the incident from a few days ago, Xu Qing was puzzled. After thinking about it for a while, he picked up his phone and began typing rapidly. When did foot binding originate? A quick search turned up a flood of results. Some said the Sui Dynasty, others the Southern Tang, but the majority pointed to the late Northern Song period. Ahem, could you lift your foot? No. Earlier, that was Xu Qing trailed off, met by Jianghe's embarrassed yet furious glare. Seeing her expression, something clicked in Xu Qing's mind, and he slapped his thigh in realization. She hadn't worn any of the small-sized underwear he'd bought. So, foot binding my SS, that whole idea was just... Xu Qing's gaze drifted over, only to be met with Jianghe's mortified, angry stare. Scoundrel! Clang! An iron dart clattered onto the table, and Xu Qing quickly clammed up, turning away to focus on the rumbling washing machine. So, it wasn't malnutrition after all, just binding. But would that affect her development? Wintermelon lay sprawled across his lap, irritated by the washing machine's noise. She got up, wandered in a small circle, and then hopped onto Jianghe's lap, curling her tail around herself before settling down. With the cute bee. With no cat to pet, Xu Qing was at a loss. Sitting idly, he opened Baidu and looked up the term scoundrel. The fairest beauty of all. Ahem, the fairest beauty couldn't compare to the women of Chu. Among the beauties of Chu, the loveliest was none other than a girl from the eastern village. Xu Qing began a dramatic reading, catching Jianghe's frowning glance. She said nothing, but her ears perked up ever so slightly. This girl had a perfectly proportioned figure, not too tall or short, and a natural beauty that needed no powder or rouge. Her eyebrows, skin, waist, and teeth were flawless. When she smiled, it was indescribably captivating, leaving countless men smitten. Sneaking a glance at Jianghe, Xu Qing continued, unperturbed. But the scoundrel was different. His wife? Oh, his wife had messy hair, crooked ears, cracked lips, and missing teeth. Tisk truly pitiful. She walked hunched over, limping, covered in sores, and even had serious ailments. Yet, the scoundrel adored her and even had 5 children with her. 5. Xu Qing spread his fingers with an exaggerated flair. Impressive, right? Jianghe looked at him in confusion. You know what they call this? This is what we call a true man of character. Xu Qing shook his head in mock admiration. To marry such an unattractive woman and still live in harmony, love, and prosperity. Truly a model for us all. With that, he gave Jianghe a salute. Thank you, Lady Knight, for the compliment. Jianghe stared at him in utter bewilderment. Hey, by the way, when people express gratitude in your world, don't they say something like, in the next life, I'll repay you as a bull or a horse if the benefactor isn't good-looking? But if he's good-looking, they say, I have no way to repay you. So this humble girl offers herself, something like that. Xu Qing asked. Offers herself. Jianghe ground her teeth in frustration. Scoundrel. Thank you, Lady Knight, for the compliment. Ha. Stop glaring. I'm just kidding. Xu Qing chuckled, clearly enjoying how easy it was to tease her. Thanks to this little distraction, the awkward feeling Jianghe had earlier from seeing Xu Qing holding her undergarments had completely dissipated. She rubbed Wintermelon's soft belly and returned to watching her history video. Just as the washing machine finished, their food delivery arrived, 2 orders of braised chicken rice. Jianghe put away her laptop while Xu Qing hung up the clothes, wiped his hands, and joined her at the table. To be honest, if he ignored the whole identity issue, having a lady night around was actually pretty fun. Though, he wondered if she'd still be as interesting once she fully adapted to modern life. So, what kind of fun things do you have in your world? It's not all sword fights, is it? Xu Qing asked as he ate. Jianghe paused, thinking for a moment. Hunting, quite the pastime. Xu Qing felt at a loss for words. I'll download some games for you to try later. Hearing words she didn't understand, Jianghe didn't ask further, choosing to eat in silence. If she asked about everything she didn't understand, she wouldn't have time for anything else. After their meal, Xu Qing found himself with nothing to do again. Normally, He'd be watching movies for inspiration or studying the stock market at this time. Ever since Jiang he showed up, his routine had been completely thrown off. Let's start with a video tutorial. Thinking it over, Xu Qing remembered what he'd planned to do before their meal. He went to his computer and quickly searched for a tutorial on properly wearing a bra. It wasn't hard to find one. A quick search turned up plenty. After clicking on the most popular one, he checked the video length, then left the room, leaving Jiang he to learn on her own. After all, with modern technology at hand, it was silly to stick to outdated practices. Not to mention, he had a compulsion that everything he bought should be used. Yes, that was it. 5 minutes later, Xu Qing returned from his room, timing it perfectly. Jiang He's face was flushed, her lips moving as if she wanted to call him a scoundrel, but ultimately held back. Is this lifestyle so shameless in your world? She finally asked after a pause. Shameless? Xu Qing was taken aback. It's about being comfortable and enjoying life. Isn't that normal? Shameless. Shameless. Xu Qing couldn't help but laugh. In public, haven't you seen girls showing their legs or waists? That's personal freedom. Men show skin. So why shouldn't women? It's the same logic. If you're not comfortable with it, go ahead and wear long sleeves and pants, but don't go around calling others shameless. I won't accept it, Jiang he declared firmly. Fine. No need to accept it. I didn't tell you to wear that outside anyway, just under your clothes. I'll shut up now. Noticing her increasing frustration, Xu Qing wisely changed the subject, browsing through his game library. Games here are really fun. Studies show that 90% of people learn to use computers just to play games. I'm sure you're not in that remaining 10%. He guided Jiang he through a game of Super Mario, watching her reaction. Noticing her lack of interest, he quickly switched to another game. An hour later, it was clear that Jiang he didn't find these strange games particularly engaging. She picked up the controls quickly, but only showed slight interest in a simple dress-up game on a small website. All right, I'll teach you how to play Fight the Landlord. Xu Qing pondered for a moment, deciding to give it another shot. He had to keep her occupied somehow. Letting her sneak out at night or train nonstop wasn't a great plan. And who knew? Maybe one day, if Jiang he adapted to this society, she'd leave without notice, off to wander or to search for her long and orgus. Better to keep her busy with games. 3 of a kind. Beat that. Overpowered. Pass. With the chime of music, Xu Qing was teaching Jiang he the rules of Fight the Landlord. Seeing her start to play on her own with a curious look, he stopped hovering around and stretched, heading back to his room to rest. Getting up early had its downside, feeling drowsy in the afternoon and needing a nap. But then, taking a nap meant it would be hard to sleep at night, leading to a late night, late morning cycle all over again. Good thing he hadn't found a job that day. Though, come to think of it, even if he had landed a job, Xu Qing would have ended up quitting after finding Jiang He. He'd need time to thoroughly research this ancient person he'd stumbled upon. It wasn't until sunset, as the orange glow filtered through the window, that Xu Qing rubbed his eyes and walked out of his bedroom, curious to see what Jiang he was doing. Fight the Landlord was turned off, and the computer was now playing a scene from a classic Xiongyao drama. Listen to my explanation. I don't want to listen. As the two characters clung to each other, crying their hearts out, Jiang he sat emotionless, hugging Winter Melon, watching the two on screen, sobbing miserably. This isn't anything good. Don't watch too much of it. Xu Qing sighed. He'd save the drama to get reaction images for editing purposes. Admittedly, those tearful scenes made great meme material. After shutting off the sappy drama for Jiang He, Xu Qing checked the playback history. The timeline had reached the Ming Dynasty, moving faster than he expected. Curious, he asked, so, how did you feel about the fall of the Tang Dynasty? You know, the dynasty change? Jiang he shook her head quietly, not saying anything. Come on, let's go out for food. This time we'll head east. Oh, and it'd be best if you changed into a skirt. It might help with the whole new image thing. Seeing Jiang he stay silent, Xu Qing pointed at her hair. No need to tie your hair up either. Just leave it down. The other night when you went out, it was tied up, right? Yes. Jiang he nodded and, following his advice, went back to her room to change. Moments later, dressed in a light green long skirt. Jiang He opened the door, her usual composed and bold demeanor softened. Standing there, she looked as delicate and radiant as a blooming flower. Nigerian Irioe. Xu Qing froze, scratching his head before signaling. Never mind, go back and change into the other clothes. This one's too eye-catching. When it came to aura, ancient people were, indeed, unfathomably unique. Clenching her fists slightly, Jiang He returned to her room to change back. Once her door shut, Xu Qing leaned against it, pulling out his phone to browse Taobao. Maybe he could buy more clothes to try a real-life version of a dress-up game. Out shopping with your girlfriend again? Uncle Zhao was smoking, holding a stick with a yellow charm paper stuck to the handle, apparently something he had acquired in the single day that had passed. Just a friend, Xu Qing replied casually, glancing at the stick with a hint of guilt. Uncle Zhao, is that Peachwood? No, the Peachwood hasn't arrived yet. Just making do for now. Oh, much appreciated. Do I look like that door god Qin Xiao? Uncle Zhao asked, striking a pose with the stick, evidently proud. A mere security guard? He now saw himself as bearing the responsibilities of both Qin Xiong and Yu Qigong. Yes, spot on. It's almost dark. Stay alert. Xu Qing agreed. No worries. I have the Great Compassion mantra with me. Uncle Zhao looked at the darkening sky, feeling a bit unnerved, and pulled out his phone, pressing a couple of buttons. Buddhist chants began playing from the speaker. Xu Qing shot Jiang He a complex look. This really was a product of superstition. After some small talk, the two walked out of the complex. Seeing there was no one else around, Jiang He finally whispered, "What does girlfriend mean?" "It's just a friend." "Then why add girl to it?" "Because you're a girl." Xu Qing answered dismissively. "Then why did you say it isn't?" Xu Qing faltered, unsure how to explain the concept of dating to her. Did people in the Tang Dynasty date? Don't ask questions that don't concern you. You'll understand one day. Oh. They strolled down the street slowly, taking in the sights. No matter how many times they went out, Jiang He found herself fascinated by the diverse shops and displays lining the roads. There was no curfew, no street vendors cluttering the paths, and no muddy roads full of potholes. The people around them walked either with smiles on their faces or a hurried expression, some families of 3 holding hands, while others were chuckling at their phones as they walked. Everywhere she looked was a kind of peace she didn't know how to describe. It was a tranquility she had never seen before, not even in times of prosperity. Everything seemed serene, and all that she saw felt like a dream. "Want some milk tea?" Xu Qing stopped at the entrance of a milk tea shop, and Jiang He halted beside him. "Tea? Come on in." Too lazy to explain, Xu Qing figured she'd understand with a taste. 1 bubble milk tea, 1 kumquat lemon, less ice and sugar. After paying, they stood by the entrance waiting quietly. Jiang He watched the bustling staff inside, lost in thought. When the drinks were ready, Xu Qing put a straw in the bubble tea and handed it to Jiang He. "Here, try this. Mine's sour. After walking a bit further, Jiang He finally spoke. "So those people, they make money doing that?" "Yep, it's a job." "Can I learn to do that kind of job?" "You can't. You don't have an ID card." Jiang He went silent. Getting you an identity is a slow process. It won't happen overnight, but don't worry. We'll figure it out. Xu Qing reassured her, noticing she hadn't drunk much of the milk tea, which puzzled him. "Don't like it." Jiang He took another big sip, frowned slightly as she swallowed, and said, "It's a bit strange, and the stuff inside is hard to chew." "Ah, exactly." Xu Qing laughed. "I think so too. How could people enjoy this? They say girls love it, but..." Jiang He looked from Xu Qing's kumquat lemon drink to his face. "Is something wrong with him?" Mine's sour, so you might not like it." Xu Qing shrugged. He took a straw out and offered the drink to her. "Try it with your straw if you don't believe me." Somewhat doubtful, Jiang He took her straw, gave a quick shake, inserted it into his cup, and took a sip. The sweet and sour taste made her eyes widen as she savored it, looking up at Xu Qing. "It's really good." Xu Qing scratched his nose. "Well, then you can have it. I'll throw this bubble tea away." He took her milk tea and tossed it into the nearby trash can. "Glad you like it." Xu Qing grinned and turned, leading her onward. Jiang He held the kumquat lemon tea in her hands, occasionally taking a sip as she walked beside Xu Qing, glancing at him from time to time. Something didn't seem quite right, but it was really delicious. After finishing dinner, night had already fallen. Unlike before, Xu Qing didn't immediately take Jiang He back. Instead, the two strolled leisurely down the street to digest their food. Come here. Don't say anything. As they passed a bus stop, Xu Qing suddenly paused, pointing to a bus approaching. Don't panic. Just follow me. It was more of a habit for him to remind her, though Jiang He had always handled things well. She didn't overreact to new sights and sounds, saving her questions for later. Following his gaze, Jiang He saw the bus approaching, and as the doors opened automatically, Xu Qing reached into his pocket for change and stepped on. She followed, watching him drop a coin into the slot before they headed to the back to sit. The bus doors closed and started moving forward. This ride is pretty smooth, isn't it? Xu Qing whispered to Jiang He, sitting by the window. Yeah, I thought you'd be more amazed. You look pretty calm. I've ridden in carriages before. Jiang He adhered to her rule of speaking less outside, responding briefly before looking out the window. The city's nightscape sped past, filling her with wonder at this city that never slept. With only a few passengers, most of them were either dozing or playing on their phones as the bus moved along, stopping and starting to let people on and off. Xu Qing's goal was simply for Jiang He to experience a bus ride, without any particular destination in mind. When they passed the Lanjiang Bridge, he suddenly got an idea and tugged Jiang He to her feet. This is called Lanjiang. The cool night breeze stirred their clothing as they heard the sound of the river flowing in the distance. Under the moonlight, they could see the glistening surface of the river. Pointing to the water, Xu Qing turned to Jiang He with a smile. In your time, the night would have been pitch black, right? Things are different now. This is what we call a modern city's night view. The calm waters stretched out, while the riverbanks were bustling with weekend visitors. From the bridge, the two could see the neon lights along both sides, the shapes of various buildings illuminated, sparkling like glass towers in a kaleidoscope of colors. Jiang He couldn't resist stepping forward, gazing upward with her eyes slightly narrowed as her hands rested on the railing. She was utterly mesmerized by the vast skyline. Even if Xu Qing had told her this was a divine realm, she wouldn't have doubted it much. 1,200 years. Oceans turned into mulberry fields. Xu Qing adjusted his clothes against the chill night air, smiling as he noted Jiang He's awe. Is this really 1,000 years later? Jiang He asked softly, still staring into the distance. In just a millennium, the world has become a whole new place. You've read most of the history now. You should have an answer. The sound of distant waves accompanied them. Xu Qing looked at Jiang He. Despite her modern clothing, her aura seemed to stand apart from everything around her. Pulling out his phone, he took a picture of her, and then he looked at the distant city lights. Even though getting your ID is tough, going back, you probably can't go back, but staying here isn't bad. Seeing her remain silent, Xu Qing continued. People can now go above the sky, beneath the sea, even to the moon. If you ever get an ID, I'll take you on a plane and fly you to the sky one day. The sky. Jiang He finally reacted, lifting her head to gaze at the bright moon. Yeah, on a plane. It goes vroom, vroom, vroom. Xu Qing chuckled, shaking his head. But that's a long way off. For now, you'll just be stuck in my small apartment, learning about this world. And then, Jiang He asked, what then? She looked confused, almost wistful. After learning about this world, Xu Qing frowned. He hadn't considered this question. After that, you just live. Xu Qing swung his arm over the bridge, taking in the glittering lights. Live here and enjoy the prosperity 1,200 years later. He glanced at Jiang He and smiled. You'll find something you like, something that suits you. This is the best era in history. There's no reason it can't fit one girl, even if she's from over 1,000 years ago. Jiang He stayed silent, her eyes still on the distance as the wind lifted her clothes. She stood straight and still, her slender figure shadowed as though the world had abandoned her. What are you thinking? I was just thinking how happy second boss would be to see this world. Then look on behalf of her, and for all of them. First boss, second boss, third boss. Look at it all for them. Thank you. No problem at all. If this were ancient times, Xu Qing figured he'd be a wandering knight-errant, roaming everywhere, fighting injustice, drinking heavily, and living freely. One man with a sword, traveling the land. But now he could only stay home as a, skinny homebody. A true martial artist, sitting in the living room, studying history and the development of the Industrial Revolution. He had even bought more books for Jiang, as she grew accustomed to life here. Meanwhile, Xu Qing himself was editing videos on his computer. Without a regular job, he took his work as an online creator seriously, earning comment from his fans, amazed at his productivity. The golden autumn of October arrived. It had been a month since Jiang arrived. For most workers, the National Day holiday was a time for celebration. But for these two, it was just like any other day. The only difference was that the stock market was closed, so Xu Qing lost the thrill of watching its volatile trends. "Aunt Cheng, is that the master you hired?" Xu Qing asked, holding takeout as he looked at an elderly man in a yellow robe a short distance away. The ritual was organized by a few other residents, who even copied the surveillance footage to share with neighbors. Although most people were terrified, word got out eventually. In fact, neighbor Lao Liang had been worried for days until he found out that several other complexes had similar hauntings. This reassured everyone, and even the police came by, though they found nothing. Xu Qing had contributed a share to cover the costs, feeling obligated to help, as it was Jiang's antics that had stirred up the trouble. "Yes, look at him. He's quite professional." Aunt Cheng stood at a distance, munching on sunflower seeds while watching the ritual. The Taoist priest threw handfuls of rice, chanting and sprinkling it repeatedly. Very professional indeed. Xu Qing noticed the crowd watching. "You take your time. I'm heading back." "All right." Back home, Jiang was rolling up her sleeves by the washing machine, trying to gauge the right amount of detergent. "Let me handle it." Handing the detergent to Xu Qing, she glanced out the window curiously. "What's everyone watching?" "They're watching a priest perform an exorcism." Xu Qing found her innocent expression amusing, especially since she was the culprit. If not for her late-night escapades, none of this would have happened. She nearly scared Uncle Zhao into early retirement. Now, he carried a peachwood sword everywhere he went. Half a month ago, rumors of hauntings had already hit the Jiang City morning news. The street surveillance this time was even creepier than the footage Xu Qing and the others had seen before. A dark shadow, flitted by like a ghost, sometimes curling into a ball or floating up to the top of a wall, drawing significant attention. People had been going out less at night, while the police started patrolling the area more frequently. To play it safe, Xu Qing hadn't let Jiang go outside for over 2 weeks, telling her to stay in the apartment. Only now that the situation had calmed somewhat was he relaxing his guard. What a damn mess. Xu Qing shook his head and sighed, scrolling through local news on his phone while eating. Some people said it was an animal that escaped from the zoo, while others insisted it was a real ghost, claiming they'd seen a female ghost with a bloody face and bulging eyes. Fortunately, modern society isn't very superstitious. Most young people dismissed it as a prank by someone with too much time on their hands, calling it a hoax designed to get attention. They even took screenshots and annotated them for analysis. Besides that, the news feed was full of repetitive posts about freedom, democracy, harmony, and civility. "Do people here live like they're in prison?" Jiang suddenly asked, her voice muffled as she ate. After over a month of observation, she noticed that Xu Qing spent nearly all his time at home, going out only for meals or a short morning stroll. "Of course not. This is called staying in," Xu Qing explained, pointing at himself. "I'm a homebody. A job. No, a lifestyle. I don't really get it." Jiang shook her head. She'd been trying hard to learn, but it was tough. From the Tang Dynasty to the Song, Yuan, and Ming, she had a basic understanding of historical development up to now, but those were broad concepts. She was still blind to the practical aspects of daily life. "It just means I can choose to go out, but I prefer staying home." Going out is tiring, so I just lie around here like some wealthy landlord with nothing to do. Xu Qing chuckled. No, you are like that. I want to go out, Jiang, he said quietly. Staying here, she couldn't learn how to live. Every day felt like being a caged pet, like wintermelon. Go out, Xu Qing echoed. Yeah, you mean leave here? He knew her idea of going out wasn't just a short stroll. Jiang, he lowered her gaze and nodded after a moment of silence. Stop joking. What would you do out there, he asked. Just think about food, clothing, and shelter. You'd have no fresh clothes, just 2 legs to walk on. Where would you sleep? On a rooftop? And eat? In beta? Jiang, he opened her mouth but had no response. Would you steal or rob? Xu Qing set down his chopsticks, looking at her. He could give her some money, of course, and she could now order food at a restaurant on her own. But with no way to earn more, it would eventually run out, leaving her stranded with no options but crime or hoping for another benefactor. There's no wilderness here for hunting. Oh, you could try the trash bins. Jiang, he lowered her head, her silence hanging over the table. After a while, her shoulders slumped as she let out a silent sigh, feeling a deep sense of powerlessness. If Xu Qing's talk about the importance of identity was a lie, that would be easier to accept. But after over a month, she knew he meant well and wasn't lying to deceive her. Without an identity, it was almost impossible to get by. Xu Qing looked at her for a moment, then softened his tone. Changing habits, lifestyle, and perspective, it's hard. I get it, but we have to take things slowly. At least now you know how to take the bus and use money. Isn't that a big step? I'm not learning anything. Jiang, he muttered, feeling frustrated. No, you've learned a lot. Xu Qing thought for a moment. At least now, you're not pulling out darts or drawing a sword when I talk to you. And if I give you some cash, you'd manage on your own for a while way better than when you first arrived. Step by step. Once the haunting rumors die down, I'll take you out more. Some things you'll only understand by experiencing them. There's really a ghost out there? Jiang, he asked, surprised. There's still a Taoist priest out there hopping around, Xu Qing muttered, glancing out the window as he got up to clean the takeout containers. To adjust to a completely foreign world, it took more than intelligence. Habits had to change one by one. At least now, she knew to wait at traffic lights, handle money, and occasionally even win a hand or two at fight the landlord. When you're able to earn money, you can pay me back. If you can't, then... He paused, seeing Jiang He's clear, earnest gaze. Swallowing the joke he was about to make, he shook his head and said, It's time we found something for you to do. Let me think about what you might be good at. Jiang, he clasped her hands respectfully. Thank you, young hero. Call me Great Hero. Since she couldn't get a regular job, Xu Qing figured the next best thing was the online gig economy. His own work was online, so he understood how it worked. But long-term success required dedication, and few people made a real living from it. That afternoon, try this game, see if you can pick it up. He'd registered her a new account and was teaching her to play. Online gaming services could be easy money, and a historical-themed game like Jin Wang 3 suited her. As a game assistant, she'd at least be occupied, could make some cash, and might even learn from interacting with others. Well, it's just playing, Jiang, he asked, sensing something odd. Looking at the game screen, she thought for a moment, then asked, Why can't I do what you do? Just watching cameras to earn money. That's too complicated for you right now, Xu Qing said, waving his hand. You need a ton of watching experience. Click-clack. Suddenly, the sound of keys turning in the lock interrupted him. They exchanged glances. Xu Qing's face changing as he motioned for Jiang he to go to her room, shouting, Who's there? Open up. Hearing the voice, Xu Qing turned to Jiang He, urging, It's my family. Go hide in your room. Jiang He was puzzled, but went to her room. It seemed strange for an outsider to have free access while family members had to be hidden. Coming, I'll get the door. Seeing that Jiang He was out of sight, Xu Qing finally opened the door. Dad, what brings you here? Call me landlord. Su Wenbin adjusted his glasses, stepping in and glancing at the computer screen, then at Xu Qing. Haven't found a job yet? Why does my landlord care if I work? I'll find here, take this. Just pay the bills. Who needs a job when I'm fine? Xu Qing went to the couch to get his phone. Su Wenbin shoved Wintermelon aside with his finger, looking a little disgusted. You graduated and still refuse to get a proper job, doing these little schemes all day. Just what are you thinking? I should really lock me up in a cow shed. Xu Qing finished, sighing. I'll transfer it to you now. Did you really come all the way here just to check if I'm working? It's National Day. No one's at work? Or did you kind of look at the utility bills? Su Wenbin gave him a disappointed look, then glanced at the computer. If you don't find a job by next month, your rent goes up. Let's see if you're still so eager to loaf around. By the way, Xu Qing paused mid-transfer and looked up. Dad, did you see that Taoist priest outside on your way here? I did. What? Su Wenbin frowned. There's a haunting here, creepy environment. You should lower my rent. My. Hurry up, Anne. Mid-sentence. Su Wenbin's gaze froze as he stared at the balcony. Xu Qing followed his line of sight to see Jiang, his clothes fluttering in the breeze. Silence settled over them. Dad, listen, I can explain. Su Wenbin's face darkened. You wearing this kind of stuff now? Xu Qing was baffled. To admit or not to admit, that was the question. Compared to wearing women's clothes himself, having a girl suddenly appear at home shouldn't be that strange. Right? Seeing Su Wenbin's face darken, Xu Qing quickly spun his thoughts. He could hide it for now, but it wouldn't stay hidden forever. If his dad happened to chat with Aunt Chung or any of the other neighbors, those big mouths would definitely spill the beans about a girl living at home. She's my friend. Oh, Su Wenbin clearly didn't believe it, looking at him with a grim expression, waiting for more of an explanation. It's a long story. I have a friend, his sister, my friend's sister. She's here to stay for a few days. Jiang He opened the door. Xu Qing explained while moving to the storeroom door, knocking twice as he tried to figure out how to spin this properly. Creak. The door opened, and Jiang He appeared, looking sweetly at Xu Qing as he winked at her, though she seemed unsure. This is my dad. Dad, this is Jiang He. Xu Qing braced himself for the introduction, hoping Jiang He wouldn't act suspiciously. Dad, Jiang He started, then paused, turning to Xu Qing to quietly ask, what should I call him? Su Wenbin's previously softened face turned complicated again as he looked at Xu Qing without a word. Was this girl trying to call him Dad just now? It certainly seemed that way. At 40-something, Su Wenbin was suddenly questioning if he had left the house wrong that morning. Because why were things getting so bizarre? Ahem. Call him Uncle. Xu Qing cleared his throat, pretending not to notice his dad's stare. Hello, Uncle. Hello. Su Wenbin composed himself, responding nonchalantly. Anyway, that's basically the situation. She'll be staying here for a bit. Xu Qing glossed over the details, just trying to let things slide. MHM. Jiang He nodded. You come over here, Su Wenbin said, pulling Xu Qing into the bedroom, glancing back at Jiang He. Jiang He, right? Don't worry, carry on. After closing the door, he turned to Xu Qing, his face darkening again. What's going on here? Just what I said. A friend is staying over. Besides, you don't have to keep coming over and scaring the girl. Hand over the spare key, too, so she can use it. I'll give it back to you when she leaves. Ayo. Xu Qing held his hand out for the key with confidence. He needed to get it now, or else if either his dad or mom showed up while Jiang He was alone, it could cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. Your girlfriend, Su Wenbin said, staring at him. She's not. She almost called me Dad just now. Xu Qing scratched his head. You must have seen it wrong. Su Wenbin stared at him the moment longer before changing the topic. How old is she? 18. Good grief. What do you mean, good grief? Xu Qing grimaced. She's just staying here for a bit, backing up 10 steps, 100 steps even if we were dating. It's perfectly reasonable and legal. What's so grievous about it? Su Wenbin smacked his lips, unsure of what to say. He came over to nudge his son into paying rent and finding a job. And now there's a girl almost calling him Dad. He felt a little conflicted. Kid, you don't even have a job. As long as I can make money, who cares if I have a job or not? It's the information age. Okay, fine, here, I'll transfer the money right now, take the rent, and hand over the key. Xu Qing didn't want to get into yet another endless debate about his career choices. Even if he convinced his dad that being an internet content creator was work, his dad would just keep arguing about the lack of insurance, retirement, and benefits. How much are the utilities? 238. Ignoring his dad's concerns, Xu Qing swiftly completed the transfer and showed him the transaction on his phone. All right, hand over the key. I've never heard of a landlord keeping the spare key and barging in whenever they want. It's my house. I'm renting it. Su Wenbin glared at him, then reluctantly handed over the spare key. Make sure to pay on time. I shouldn't have to keep reminding you. The contract doesn't specify a date. I'll send it when I remember. Xu Qing brushed him off. The house was their own, yet he still had to rent it. Not only rent, but also pay a higher rate than other units of the same size in the building. As Su Wenbin put it, if you get a job, you can live here for free. If not, you'll pay rent and higher than others. When Xu Qing asked why he was raising the price, even considering renting elsewhere, Su Wenbin had responded, "Go ahead." Xu Qing had thought it over and realized his dad was playing the long game here. Renting from his own family might be more expensive, but in the end, all the money in the house would be his. If he rented elsewhere, the money would be gone for good. Where's Mom? Out on another inspection? No, she's home playing mahjong. Su Wenbin glanced at his phone. She wanted you to come over for dinner, but mid-sentence, he glanced towards the door, wondering if he should tell Xu Qing's mom about this situation. No time for now, maybe later. Xu Qing instantly saw through his thoughts. She's just a friend, not a girlfriend. Do I look like a fool? Su Wenbin's face darkened, and after a pause, he added casually, "Be careful." Be careful of what? She's just a friend. Exasperated, Xu Qing opened the door. If there's nothing else, please go. I'm working here. Listen, you young people, getting into relationships too soon can be problematic, just like that girl Zhu. Dad, Xu Qing interrupted. Fine, let's not bring up the past. Just get yourself a job. Su Wenbin got up and glanced into the empty living room. Jiang had already gone back to her room, so he stepped out. His son dating an 18-year-old wasn't something to worry about, but bringing her straight to his place? That felt a bit too much. Still, it's normal for kids to date at his age. He'd have to discuss this with Xu Qing's mom later. As they walked out of the room, Xu Qing prepared to see his dad off when he suddenly remembered something. Wait, Dad, come here. He pulled his dad back in and shut the door, rummaging around near the bed. What now? Su Wenbin asked, puzzled. Here, take a look. Xu Qing held up a pair of old straw sandals, showing them to his dad with a mysterious air. Check this out. Tang Dynasty artifact. Think it's worth anything. His dad had been in archaeology his whole life. Xu Qing knew this was right up his alley. Did you say an artifact from which dynasty? Su Wenbin glanced at the sandals, picking his ear with his pinky as if he'd heard wrong. Tang Dynasty, probably from the time of Li Longji, Xu Qing said confidently. If this thing could fetch a decent price, he'd be set. No need to worry about an ID, or any ID-related issues for that matter. Seeing his dad's expression turn incredulous, Xu Qing grew excited. What do you think, valuable? Go get a mental evaluation done at South Mountain Mental Hospital. Su Wenbin gave him a long, meaningful look. He wondered if having a second child was still an option.